These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit delivery service. More info at HelloFresh.com, code TOM. CB Distillery, CBD for sleep and pain relief. More info is available at cbdistillery.com, code TOM. Ground News, a well-rounded perspective for news readers. More info at ground.news/Tom. Angie, for any project on your to-do list. More info at Angie.com. Dinovite, a whole food supplement for your pet's immune system. More info at Dinovite.com. And ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More information at expressvpn.com/Tom.
Hey, it's a special Halloween fundraiser for Free Speech TV. If you are already on the Free Speech TV mailing list, you've probably gotten a couple of emails kind of warning you that this might be coming, but it's time to raise some money for Free Speech TV. What a fine thing to do for the holiday, for Halloween. And in fact, we've got some frontline funders. This is just a 2-day fundraiser, today and tomorrow, today and Friday. And we've got some frontline funders who have come up with a $10,000 match. So whatever gift you contribute today will be doubled. And that is Deborah in California, Bobby and Vivian in California, Kelly in Colorado, Karen in Colorado, Barbara in California, Barbara in California, Chuck in California, Kayreen in California, Diane in California, Marcy in New York, and Anonymous in California. A big tip of the hat to all the Californians there. And also, Free Speech TV is offering some special treats. With a $100 gift, you get the Free Speech TV limited edition Halloween beanie. And with a $20 gift, you get the Free Speech TV chocolate-covered Halloween Oreo. It doesn't get better than that, right? And so here we are. It's time to, deal with what blood and gore and, well, actually, Karl Marx, of all people, had some things to say about this. He said, capital is dead labor. This is from his book Capital, right? Published around in the 1860s, as I recall. Capital is dead labor that, vampire-like, only lives by sucking living labor and lives the more labor it sucks. The time during which the laborer works is the time during which the capitalist consumes the labor power he has purchased of him. The capital given in exchange for labor power is converted into necessaries, by the consumption of which the muscles, nerves, bones, and brains of existing laborers are reproduced and new laborers are begotten. I bet you didn't know that Karl Marx was talking about zombies. He goes on, he says, it must be acknowledged that our laborer comes out of the process of production other than he entered. Oh, we're transformed by the workplace? In the market, he stood as the owner of a commodity, labor power, face to face with other owners of commodities, dealer against dealer. The contract by which he sold to the capitalist his labor power proved, so to say, in black and white, that he disposed of himself freely. The bargain concluded, it is discovered that he was no free agent. That the time for which he is free to sell his labor power is the time for which he is forced to sell it. That, in fact, the vampire will not lose its hold on him so long as there is a muscle, a nerve, or a drop of blood to be exploited. He goes on, Karl Marx, in this Halloween version of Das Kapital. He goes on to say, we may say that surplus value rests on a natural basis, but this is permissible only in the very general sense that there is no natural obstacle absolutely preventing one man from disburdening himself of the labor requisite of his own existence and burdening another with it, any more, for instance, than unconquerable natural obstacles prevent one man from eating the flesh of another. So, I'm not a Marxist, but I am a fan of Marx's analysis of capitalism. I think some of his solutions were wrong, but I think his analysis was pretty solid. So, it is vampire time. It is Halloween, of course, and time to help out Free Speech TV, because Free Speech TV is not engaging in capital. They are not selling products. They are asking for your support. Free Speech TV is more like kind of a, well, I think Karl Marx would approve, kind of a commune or well, it's a nonprofit. It's a not-for-profit. So your contribution, when you call 877-378-8669 and make your contribution is tax deductible. And like I said, will be doubled because of these frontline funders who have stepped up to say, yeah, we want to help make Free Speech TV viable. We want to help keep Free Speech TV going. So our special fundraiser here, again, with a tip of the hat to Deborah and Bobby and Vivian and Kelly and Karen and Barbara and Chuck and Kayreen and Diane and Marcy and Anonymous. And don't forget the Free Speech TV chocolate-covered Halloween Oreo. I'm salivating thinking of it. And with a $20 gift, and the Free Speech TV limited edition Halloween beanie with a $100 gift. Perfect for the kids in your family or for the ghouls in your family. So let's assert some vampire power over our economic system and help support this great nonprofit organization, Free Speech TV, that exists solely, largely anyway, because of your contributions. What a great opportunity to make a contribution today or tomorrow. Today there's a $10,000 match. Your gift up to $10,000 will be doubled by these fine people that I named earlier by calling 877-378-8669 right now. 877-378-8669. Please help out Free Speech TV and keep this network going. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Well, President Biden just walked out on the thinnest ice of his political career, I am guessing. We will see. He's just wrapping up a speech right now in which he points out that the American middle class over the last 40 years of Reaganomics, my addition to that, not his, but basically he said over the last few decades we have been shoveling money. Again, I'm paraphrasing here. This is all my language, not his. But basically, we've been shoveling money up to the people at the top, the billionaires who've made $2 trillion just during the pandemic. And, we've been screwing middle-class people. And he basically announced that, we've got this deal. The $3.5 trillion package is now a $1.75 trillion package. The Medicare expansion that was going to be vision, dental, and hearing aids is now hearing aids. The climate plan is $555 billion. This is substantial. This is, I mean, he has to have this if he's going to go to Scotland, to the COP conference. He's off to G20 now, and then he's off to Scotland, and then he's off to, which I believe is in Switzerland, and then he's off to Scotland for the COP26, the climate change conference. He said we're going to promote cleaner energy. We're going to give free pre-kindergarten to people. We're going to give tax credits to young families. This, if this all passes, it will be the largest middle-class tax cut, probably in history. Maybe certainly one of the biggest. What he didn't succeed at in these negotiations, he's laying this out like it's a done deal, right? There haven't been any votes. But what he didn't succeed at doing was rolling back the Trump tax cuts. Kyrsten Sinema was absolutely firm on that. Sorry, you can't roll back the Trump tax cuts. The billionaires who own me do not want it, and I do what they say, says Senator Sinema. He, to the best of my knowledge, hasn't fully taken on, big oil and big coal and like that. Of course, you've got Joe Manchin saying, hey, the fossil fuel industry owns me, and I'm not, but apparently, we'll have to wait and see, right? It's, don't count your chickens before they're hatched. Well, these eggs have not even been fully laid yet. And President Biden went out this morning and said, yep, we've got it. We've got this thing under control, and here's what it is. And the bet that he's making, in my opinion, and if you think I'm crazy about this, let me know, or if you think I missed something. But it sure looks to me like the bet that he's making is that, he's going to go out and announce to the American public, here's all this cool stuff we're going to do. That all of it, everything he said this morning, polls way over north of 80% with the American public. And he says, we're going to do this, and we're going to do it now, and we're going to get it done. And I dare you, essentially, is what he's saying to both the progressives in the House who are saying, wait a minute, we want both pieces of legislation or we're not going to vote on either. And the obstructionist senators in the Senate, Manchin and Sinema, he's basically saying to them, go ahead, make my day. And they may. I mean, he's saying, you want to take down my presidency? Now, frankly, I don't think the progressives in the House have any desire or intention to take down his presidency. That is entirely in the bailiwick of the two senators who are wholly owned by America's right-wing billionaire, fossil fuel billionaire class, Manchin and Sinema. But, it's a huge gamble. I don't know how it could be described as anything other than that, just an absolutely huge gamble. And, we'll see how it goes. The White House has endorsed roughly $550 billion to address climate change, including tax changes that he says are going to cut carbon emissions in half by 2030. And there's also $100 billion set aside for immigration. That's to help cut the current backlog. Now, immigration, of course, funding for the immigration services to process people has been cut consistently over the last 10 or 12 years. And the entire $1.75 trillion, he says, is paid for in full they've abandoned the wealth tax, the tax on billionaires, and they've abandoned rolling back Trump's tax cuts. So what they're proposing are two new tax brackets. For people earning more than $10 million a year, there will be an additional 5% added to their tax rate. So they go from 34 or 36% up to 38, 37, 39%. Frankly, I'm sorry, I don't recall exactly where it's at right now because it got messed with badly by the Trump tax cuts. And then an additional 3% surtax for people earning over $25 million a year. So we're still, below 40, 41, 42% tax on people making more than $25 million. So it's not going to have the effect that old 74% tax rate had when Reagan came into office, that actually caused CEOs to limit their income and reinvest their money in their companies and their employees. That takes, passing through the 50% threshold at the top. But it's a good step. It's a good start. And it will have a lot of positive impact. So, I'm very hopeful that this bet of his pays off. I'm not going to hold my breath, but I think that there's a very good chance that it will. I mean, he's playing Lyndon Johnson here. He's saying to the people who are the outliers in his caucus, in the Democratic caucus, I have done everything I can. I've given you everything I can. We have compromised as much as we're going to. This is it. Take it or leave it. It's going to be real interesting. The other story, by the way, we've got a really big show for you today. Just to give you an overview, I want to talk about the filibuster in just a moment. Also, Bill Kristol and Noam Chomsky. Yeah, Bill Kristol, who supported the Iraq War, who's basically a neo-fascist, and Noam Chomsky, probably the most well-known figure on the so-called far left, have signed together a letter calling for the end of the filibuster and for the Senate to pass voting rights legislation, which kind of ties into my filibuster rant, which I'll get to in just a moment. And the Republican Party has succeeded. We're going to get into this in the second hour here. The Republican Party has succeeded in keeping America crippled by the virus. This is the bad news. We've got new economic numbers. I'll share that with you at the top of the second hour. And also, I want to get into this question that I asked Congressman Schiff yesterday. Why isn't Trump, or at least people in the Trump administration, like Dr. Scott Atlas, who was out there pitching herd immunity, why aren't they being held responsible for mass murder? We'll get into that in the second hour. David Sirota is going to drop by in the third hour. He is involved in producing a new movie starring Leonardo DiCaprio. It's very cool. He'll tell you about that. Plus, there's a bunch of stuff that he's up to that I wanted to share with you. And our geeky science in our third hour. America has to stop eating plastic, and it's not just the microplastic. This is, fast food they're finding has these phthalates that cause gender deformities. I mean, this is just wild stuff in our food supply. I'll tell you about that in our third hour. But let's start out with the filibuster and the fingerprints of the filibuster and why both Republicans and Democrats in the United States Senate want to keep the filibuster and who are the heroes among the Democrats with regard to this. I'll explain all that right after the break. It's 14 minutes past the hour.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And now President Biden is heading off to Air Force One to fly off to wherever it is. Italy, maybe? Maybe it's Rome. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Rome is where the G20 meeting is. And welcome back. Jerry in San Francisco. Hey, Jerry, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, just wanted to give a heads up to folks listening right now that 50 cities are going to be involved in a climate strike tomorrow, protesting the big polluters of fossil fuels. And if you want some information on that, see if you're in an area that will have climate strike, place to search is called info at Future Coalition.
Wait a minute, that's an email address. That's not a URL.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. And that's the only contact that I have there.
It was info at, what was the at? What followed the at?
Future Coalition.
Future Coalition? Okay.
.org, right.
Okay.
And in San Francisco, there will be a protest at 9 a.m. in front of the Black Rock headquarters, which is at 400 Howard Street. And what's kind of interesting, too, is there are a lot of cities that are planning this, but, the regular ones, Boston, New York, and so forth, but also Fayetteville, Arkansas, Ames, Iowa, Wichita, Kansas, Moscow, Idaho, and Corpus Christi, Texas. So things are really looking up, and I know so many things are competing for people's attention every day, but if people could take time out to prove Cinema and Manchin that they're wrong.
I'm looking at the website. It looks good. The only flag for me is that when I click on About, there's nothing there that says where their funding comes from, what kind of organization they are, who's on their board. I mean, that's a pretty breathtaking lack of transparency here.
No, it's true, but I'll tell you that if you don't want to go through that and you'll go to Sunrise Movement, or it's a coalition of established environmental groups.
Okay, Sunrise Movement.
And so, Sunrise and Youth versus Apocalypse. What else? Extinction Rebellion, I believe, is part of that.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of local environmental groups. Ones that are just regional. That work out of New York City or D.C., that type of thing. Mm-hmm. But anyway, at least you have people who have more than 24 hours to take a good look at that and see if they want to participate. Yeah,
it's a good start. And if we don't start getting in the streets, if we don't start speaking out more loudly, we're talking about the future of the world. We're talking about the fate of our children and grandchildren. We're talking about, and our own, for that matter. I mean, already climate change is killing Americans.
And how do you end your show every day, Tom?
Yeah, get out there.
You're it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
So, Jerry, it's a good one, and thanks for the heads up. You're in San Francisco. Do you know specifically what's going to be happening in San Francisco?
Yes. As I said, there's going to be a demonstration in front of Black Rock headquarters, and that's at 400 Howard Street.
Okay.
And so 2 years ago, there were, over 70,000 people who participated, and we went from Black Rock over to Chevron, over to Citibank and Chase Bank and so forth. So it's kind of a roving group. It goes from one place to the other and so forth. And I know there wasn't one bit of violence that took place there. I know some people might be worried about that, but And also give people a chance to meet the young people who have been doing a tremendous job.
There you go. There you go. Jerry, I got to run. Thanks for the call and thanks for the heads up. It's 18 minutes past the hour. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. We're available on SiriusXM, Free Speech TV, Pacifica, commercial stations nationwide, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on the Thom Hartmann app, and you can even tell your smart speaker to listen to the Thom Hartmann Program. Ahead of the United Nations Climate Summit, there is a new dump of documents that's just breathtaking. Out of countries, actually, this time. This isn't just, sleazy companies. The Saudis, the OPEC countries, they're all saying, hey, instead of focusing on getting rid of fossil fuels, why don't we focus on how to get carbon out of the atmosphere and stuff like that? Let us keep selling our fossil fuels. And Brazil and Argentina, countries that produce a lot of meat rather than oil, they are all upset because the United Nations Climate Summit, this initial document that they're trying to put out, points out that about a quarter of the world's carbon dioxide emissions are coming from the production of meat, which is pretty breathtaking. And they're saying, oh, hey, let's not talk about meat here. We really don't want to talk about all that. I've got a detailed deep dive into it on a new video that you can find over at thomhartmann.com. Check it out. All righty, let's talk about the filibuster for a moment. I have referred to this a couple of times in the last couple of weeks, more or less in passing, and I haven't done a really serious deep dive on it, and certainly hadn't done one over at HartmannReport.com. So yesterday afternoon, Louise and I brainstormed this thing and said, let's just lay it out. Why is it that there's still a filibuster? Why? The filibuster was basically used from the 1830s up until the Civil War to block anti-slavery legislation. It was used from 1865 to 1965 for 100 years, almost exclusively to block civil rights legislation. Since 1965, it was used, not all that frequently, frankly, until 2007. And something happened in 2007. What happened in 2007 was America's first black president was elected. And Mitch McConnell and the hard right and the Republican Party declared war on America's first black president and said, you are not going to have, to Obama, you are not going to have any success with anything. And they literally filibustered everything he did. If you scroll down to the bottom of today's piece, at HartmannReport.com, I took these tables from the United States Senate. The number of filibusters in the Congress in 1923-24, 0. 27-28, 0. It's 0 all the way up to 1959, 1960. Cloture was invoked 0 times. Cloture was then invoked in 62, 61, 62, 1 time. In the Congress of 63, 64, 1 time. The Congress of 65, 66, 1 time. Congress of 69, 70, 0 times. It was like, fewer than a half dozen times in the 60s, fewer than 30 times in the entire decade of the 70s. It picked up a little, 10, 11, 12, 20, things like that throughout the 90s and the early 2000s. But then we hit 2007. In 2006, there were 68 cloture motions filed, efforts to enact a filibuster, 68 of them. The next year, Obama comes into office, boom, 139. By 2013, it was 252. In 2019, it was 328. It's just, the filibuster's everywhere. So the question is why? Who benefits from this? Well, here's how it works. And both sides play this game, by the way. The single reason right now why Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin are getting, she's getting harassed walking through airports. One of her constituents was trying to talk to her as she was walking through the airport with Tim Scott last week. And Joe Manchin has got, in his hometown newspaper, editorials being run calling him a sellout. Why are they suffering like this? And they are. Trust me. I mean, they both of them, I think, love being the center of attention, but they don't like a lot of this attention that they're getting. Why are they getting this attention? Because there is no filibuster when it comes to reconciliation. Reconciliation is a hole in the filibuster that can only be applied for budget items that have to do with taxing and spending. You can't, for example, use reconciliation to end Social Security or criminalize abortion. It has to have to do with taxing and spending. Very specific limits. This hole in the filibuster, reconciliation, was created in 1974 and then was fine-tuned by Robert Byrd in 1985 because the Reagan administration was basically abusing reconciliation to get tax cuts through and other goodies that they wanted. So because this legislation, Joe Biden's legislation, is not subject to a filibuster, it can be passed with 50 votes. If something can be passed with 50 votes, any one senator can shoot it down, but they have to do it publicly. Now, if this bill had not been passed or, proposed to be passed through reconciliation, if it was just, regular order in the Senate, it would be filibustered, or not necessarily regular order, but just the way things are normally done in the Senate. It would be filibustered, and suddenly you'd need 60 votes. And then Manchin and Sinema would never have had to step up and say, I'm opposed to the taxes, I'm opposed to the fossil fuel stuff. They could have voted for it. They would have voted for it, knowing that they couldn't get 10 Republicans, it would get shot down, it would die an ignominious death, and nobody would know that Kyrsten Sinema was owned by the banksters, and nobody would know that Joe Manchin was willing to put the interest of the fossil fuel industry ahead of the future of his own children and grandchildren. But we know that now because there is no filibuster when it comes to reconciliation. There should be no filibuster when it comes to anything. What happens right now is a piece of legislation comes forward to say regulate the banksters, or regulate big pharma, or regulate the airlines. And let's say that, we have the current situation where the Democrats are in charge. That legislation, there's some Democrat who's taken money from the airlines, there's some Democrat who's taken money from the banks. They would kill it and have to stand up and do so publicly if there was no filibuster. But because there's a filibuster, they'll all vote for it. Sure, yeah, we like that. Even while they're being paid off by the banks. Because they know that it'll never pass. And the Republicans play the exact same game when they control the Senate. Mitch McConnell, there were all kinds of pieces of legislation that his base wanted that he was like, I'm sorry, I can't pass this. The Democrats keep filibustering what we try to do. Both sides hide behind the filibuster. They go back home and they say, oh, I'm sorry, we couldn't get 60 votes. You've heard it on this program. So I say it's time to blow up the filibuster. And we now have 45 Democratic senators who are saying we need to modify at the very least the filibuster, which is great. And you have 13 of them who have come right out and said, end the filibuster. That's Blumenthal, Brown, Cardin, Casey, Gillibrand, Hirono, Heinrich, Klobuchar, Markey, Rosen, Sanders, Schatz, and Van Hollen. The phone number for the Senate is 202-224-3121. If one of those names I just called out is your senator, call them up and thank them. And if your senator isn't signed up, hang on.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
And if your senator hasn't signed up for ending the filibuster, ask them why. 224-3121 is the number for the Senate. Hey, it's a special Halloween fundraiser for Free Speech TV. If you are already on the Free Speech TV mailing list, you've probably gotten a couple of emails kind of warning you that this might be coming, but it's time to raise some money for Free Speech TV. What a fine thing to do for the holiday, for Halloween. And in fact, we've got some frontline funders. This is just a 2-day fundraiser, today and tomorrow, today and Friday. And we've got some frontline funders who have come up with a $10,000 match. So whatever gift you contribute today will be doubled. And that is Deborah in California, Bobby and Vivian in California, Kelly in Colorado, Karen in Colorado, Barbara in California, Barbara in California, Chuck in California, Kayreen in California, Diane in California, Marcy in New York, and Anonymous in California. A big tip of the hat to all the Californians there. And also, Free Speech TV is offering some special treats. With a $100 gift, you get the Free Speech TV limited edition Halloween beanie. And with a $20 gift, you get the Free Speech TV chocolate-covered Halloween Oreo. It doesn't get better than that, right? And so here we are. It's time to, deal with what blood and gore and, well, actually, Karl Marx, of all people, had some things to say about this. He said, capital is dead labor. This is from his book Capital, right? Published around in the 1860s, as I recall. Capital is dead labor that, vampire-like, only lives by sucking living labor and lives the more labor it sucks. The time during which the laborer works is the time during which the capitalist consumes the labor power he has purchased of him. The capital given in exchange for labor power is converted into necessaries, by the consumption of which the muscles, nerves, bones, and brains of existing laborers are reproduced and new laborers are begotten. I bet you didn't know that Karl Marx was talking about zombies. He goes on, he says, it must be acknowledged that our laborer comes out of the process of production other than he entered. Oh, we're transformed by the workplace. In the market, he stood as the owner of a commodity, labor power, face to face with other owners of commodities, dealer against dealer. The contract by which he sold to the capitalist his labor power proved, so to say, in black and white, that he disposed of himself freely. The bargain concluded, it is discovered that he was no free agent. That the time for which he is free to sell his labor power is the time for which he is forced to sell it. That, in fact, the vampire will not lose its hold on him so long as there is a muscle, a nerve, or a drop of blood to be exploited. He goes on, Karl Marx, in this Halloween version of Das Kapital. He goes on to say, we may say that surplus value rests on a natural basis, but this is permissible only in the very general sense, that there is no natural obstacle absolutely preventing one man from disburdening himself of the labor requisite of his own existence and burdening another with it, any more, for instance, than unconquerable natural obstacles prevent one man from eating the flesh of another. So, I'm not a Marxist, but I am a fan of Marx's analysis of capitalism. I think some of his solutions were wrong, but I think his analysis was pretty solid. So, it is vampire time. It is Halloween, of course, and time to help out Free Speech TV, because Free Speech TV is not engaging in capital. They are not selling products. They are asking for your support. Free Speech TV is more like kind of a, well, I think Karl Marx would approve, kind of a commune or well, it's a nonprofit. It's a not-for-profit. So your contribution, when you call 877-378-8669 and make your contribution is tax deductible. And like I said, will be doubled because of these frontline funders who have stepped up to say, yeah, we want to help make Free Speech TV viable. We want to help keep Free Speech TV going. So our special fundraiser here, again, with a tip of the hat to Deborah and Bobby and Vivian and Kelly and Karen and Barbara and Chuck and Kayreen and Diane and Marcy and Anonymous. And don't forget the Free Speech TV chocolate-covered Halloween Oreo. I'm salivating thinking of it. And with a $20 gift, and the Free Speech TV limited edition Halloween beanie with a $100 gift. Perfect for the kids in your family or for the ghouls in your family. So let's assert some vampire power over our economic system and help support this great nonprofit organization, Free Speech TV, that exists solely, largely anyway, because of your contributions. What a great opportunity to make a contribution today or tomorrow. Today there's a $10,000 match. Your gift up to $10,000 will be doubled by these fine people that I named earlier. by calling 877-378-8669 right now. 877-378-8669. Please help out Free Speech TV and keep this network going. Thank you. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. By the way, there's this open letter, and I mentioned this at the top of the show. Bill Kristol and Noam Chomsky, honestly, it's amazing. They write, some of us are Democrats, others Republicans, some identify with the left, some with the right, and some with neither. But right now we agree on a fundamental point. We need to join together to defend liberal democracy. Liberal democracy depends on free and fair elections, respect for the rights of others, the rule of law, commitment to truth, and tolerance in our public discourse. All of these are now in serious danger. The letter continues, the primary source of this danger is one of our two major national parties, the Republican Party, which remains under the sway of Trumpist authoritarianism. Trump and his supporters actively work to exploit anxieties and prejudices to promote reckless hostility to the truth and to Americans who disagree with them, and to discredit the very practice of free and fair elections in which winners and losers respect the peaceful transfer of power. And then they go on to say that they vigorously oppose these voter disenfranchisement laws and efforts to overturn elections. And they urge the United States Congress to, quote, pass effective national legislation to protect the vote and our elections, and if necessary, to override the Senate filibuster rule. There we go. Greatest minds on the planet, left, right, and in between. I'm not sure I'd call Bill Kristol one of the greatest minds, but what the hell. Saying what I'm saying. The filibuster is a scam. In my article, I called it a fig leaf. It's a fig leaf that corrupt senators can hide behind on both parties. And I think it's spectacular that 45 out of 50 Democratic senators are saying we need to modify the filibuster. And 13 out of 50 Democratic senators have said we need to end it altogether. Frankly, we need more of that. So picking up your phone calls, Tony in Stafford, Virginia. Hey, Tony, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, I was just wondering, have you ever heard of the 1933 coup?
Yeah, it was referred to as the businessman's coup or the businessman's plot. And there were a bunch of wealthy oligarchs, businessmen, today we would call them billionaires, who got together and tried to hire General Smedley Butler. They had this veterans organization with 500,000 people in it, a hardcore right-wing veterans organization. And they were willing to march on the Capitol and seize Franklin Roosevelt and either kill him or hold him hostage and put a good Republican in the White House. And FDR and Smedley Butler, this Marine general, the most famous Marine general in history at the time, blew the whistle on them. I think I've got a clip from FDR here about hate. Let me play this. I'm not sure if this is specifically speaking to that. It's been a while since I've heard it, but just listen along with me.
Never before in all our history have these forces been so united against one candidate as they stand today. They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
There you go. So, it was a tough time in the 1930s there. Why do you bring it up, Tony?
Well, I was just wondering because they were going to start off by saying that it was too much work for Roosevelt. They were going to start running newspaper ads that he was overwhelmed mentally and physically by the job and stuff like that. Oh,
they said all kinds of terrible things about him. They said he was crazy. They said he was a communist. The character assassination against Franklin Roosevelt was breathtaking. But it didn't go very far because Americans knew, they'd had 12 years of Republican rule through the administrations of Warren Harding, Calvin Coolidge, and Herbert Hoover. And they saw what it did to America. It gutted the American middle class. The roaring 20s were only roaring for the billionaire class. The average working people actually saw their wages go down. The stock market exploded, but it was a bubble. It blew up in everybody's face, and they brought us the Great Depression. Everybody understood it. In fact, up until the 1950s, they called it the Republican Great Depression. When Dwight Eisenhower was elected in '52, they stopped calling it that.
Also, Butler, he went to Congress with it and named names and all that.
He did.
But when Congress came out with their report, they didn't have the names in there, but supposedly Roosevelt knew who they were, and he called them on the carpet.
Yeah, there was a lot of guessing that, in particular, the DuPont family and possibly the Rockefeller family were involved in this, but the DuPont was at the top of the list of suspects. But FDR actually shut that investigation down. Congress opened hearings into it, and those hearings lasted a week and a half, and then Franklin Roosevelt went to the Democrats who were running the hearings and said, don't take this any farther. I don't want to give people ideas. I don't want more focus on this. I want people to be focusing on the positive side of our agenda, what we're getting done. I don't want these right-wing cranks to get any more publicity, which was, I think, frankly, pretty smart. So, Tony, I got to run, but thanks for the call. David in Spotswood, New Jersey. Hey, David, what's on your mind today?
Hey, I have a question for you, and I have an answer to my own question, but a few facts. Germany is, I think, one of the best nations in the world for renewable energy. However, whatever coal you have left in the ground, they still export, and it gets burned.
Yeah.
If we were to build EVs to the tune of what was going to be in the $3.5 trillion bill,
right.
Or even have renewable energy, there would be an enormous demand for coal. Because right now, when you drive an EV, you're really burning coal instead of gasoline.
Depends on where you're getting electricity from, David. I'm, here in Portland, Oregon, we get our electricity from the Bonneville Dam. So when I drive my electric vehicle, I'm driving on water power, basically. There's no coal involved. But if you live in a city where you've got a coal-fired power plant, but they're being shut down left and right. It's coal is a dying energy source.
Don't get me wrong. I'm an environmentalist. Isn't it all supposed to be one grid?
No, it's not all one grid. In fact, Texas completely separated themselves from the grid. But the bottom line is that coal and oil and all these other fossil fuel-based sources have now become more expensive than solar and wind. And we need a little goose here to get over the top. Thanks a lot for the call, Mark in Kingston, Washington. Hey, Mark, what's up?
Well,
Mark, you need to get your mouth closer to the microphone.
There you go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. What we're really seeing isn't a filibuster. We're seeing a threat of a filibuster. And I'm wondering, what is the downside of making them do the filibuster? They never look good when they do it. What's your thoughts on that?
If in order to do actually there absolutely is a filibuster. That's why they're doing this by reconciliation. If they tried to introduce it without reconciliation, there'd be an instant filibuster. And the problem is that it's not like in the movie, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington or any other movie. If Ted Cruz wants to filibuster, which he has done, wants to filibuster a piece of Democratic legislation, all he has to do is have his assistant send an email to Chuck Schumer's assistant saying, I object. And all of a sudden, Chuck Schumer, instead of having to have 50 votes, has to have 60 votes. That's all it takes. And literally every single piece of legislation the Democrats have passed out of the House of Representatives and sent to the Senate that Chuck Schumer has brought to the floor has been filibustered. Every single one. And this is, like I said, this is something that started in 2007 when we got our first black president. And Mitch McConnell, one of the fulminating racist Kentucky racists, said essentially this black president is going to have zero accomplishments, and this so.
But to your point of a filibuster, let it come, because Ted Cruz looked like a complete idiot in that. And
no, but he didn't. He doesn't have to do anything. People don't even know who filibustered it. Mitch McConnell is more than happy to say, I will filibuster this, or I have an objection from one of my senators. It's all he has to say. He's hiding them because nobody has to stand on the floor. Nobody has to give a speech. Nobody has to say anything. Nobody has to go on record. This is why I said the filibuster is a fig leaf that both parties are hiding behind, and it's not a good thing. Thanks a lot for the call. Nicholas in San Cristobal, Mexico. Hey, Nicholas, what's up?
Mr. Hartmann, this is a real quickie. This is apropos of your rant against the fossil fuel obstructionism and the whole thing, and politicians of both sides hiding behind the filibuster and on and on. The New York Times today if you didn't catch it, you've got to watch this thing. There's a 7-minute little video, which is an animated video of Greta Thunberg over the years! Exclamation point. And did you see it?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it is drop dead brilliant. It is 7 minutes of the greatest takedown of all fossil fuel obstructionism you've ever seen in your life. It is all that's required to get, including that great speech to the United Nations when she virtually screamed at all the adults in the room. She said, "How dare you?" You remember that?
Right, I do.
How dare you, the adults, ask the children to save the planet. You did it. You made it on and on.
Have you seen the new Facebook meme that's floating around? It's two pictures of 17-year-olds, Greta Thunberg on the left, and then on the right is Kyle Rittenhouse with his AR-15. And the caption says, "Our 17-year-old versus your 17-year-old."
Right. Well, our 17-year-old in the New York Times today is an absolute drop-dead must-see. It has every brilliant thing anyone ever needs to say back to these climate deniers and idiots that are destroying our world, their world, more importantly, the young's world.
I will check it out. Nicholas, thanks for the heads up. It's
Shorty.
Always nice. Yeah, thank you. Always nice to hear from you. It's 45 minutes past the hour. We'll be back in just a moment with more of your calls. It's the Thom Hartmann Program. Asking, is Walmart a person? Really? Amazon? Seriously? No.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Chevron? ExxonMobil? No. They're not persons. We are persons. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Rob in Mount Iron, Minnesota. Hey, Rob, what's up?
I don't know. It's where, this guy, Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, it's where, talk about hypocrites. It's where, if you remember the book Animal Farm, it was where it started out where all animals were created equal. Then towards the end, all of a sudden, it was some animals are more equal than others.
Yes.
Well, Joe Manchin never lost a paycheck because he had to take a leave.
Yeah, you're
Marjorie
right.
Taylor Greene never has to lose a paycheck because she has to take a leave. That one congressman or senator who got shot at that softball game, I bet you he never lost a paycheck
Steve Scalise,
because he had to take leave. But at the same time, they can't vote to be able to take and give the rest of us family leave, huh?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Rob. And we're the only developed country in the world that doesn't have paid family leave, which is an abomination. And frankly, it shouldn't be. I think with really, really large employers, you could argue that paid family leave should be just considered, part of the price of having employees. But for a small business, it would be a significant burden. So I think it's really important that the government step in and say, we'll take care of this, which is exactly what they're proposing to do.
They do have a good clause in there that under 100 employees, they got to be able to take and make a special issue out of that. But over 100, I can't see why we can't get that made into law.
Yeah. Well, according to Joe Biden this morning, they're going to do it. He stopped talking about bills and legislation. He's now talking about a framework. We'll see. I am hopeful, but I am continuing to be skeptical. I think that the right-wing billionaires have got their claws into.
I'm looking forward to for some people having footprints on their butt.
Yeah, I'm with you. Rob, thanks a lot for the call. James in Huntsville, Alabama. Hey, James, what's on your mind?
Hey, what's going on there, Tom? Listened to you for a long, long time. First time I'm calling
in. Thank you.
I just all of this, though, the New Deal, the Green New Deal, all these different bills, all these different politicians, and what are they doing, and what decisions they're going to make, and all that. None of it matters until money is out of politics. Nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to matter.
Yeah.
Until money gets out of so every single topic, every controversy, everything that comes up that's being held up should always circle back, whether it's us as individuals speaking or like you guys on the air. Everything, almost every single discussion should circle back to, and if we just got money out of politics, we wouldn't even be talking about this.
And the For the People Act, really, by the way, just, FYI, James, if you don't know, the For the People Act, H.R. 1, which has passed the House of Representatives and is sitting in the Senate right now with a filibuster on it, that bill actually dials back dramatically the power of money in politics, particularly the power of dark money. It does it mostly through transparency requirements. but it really would cut the platform out from underneath the right-wing billionaires, or for that matter, left-wing billionaires who want to operate in secrecy.
But it'll never happen because of the billionaires. Right?
Well, we'll see. I mean, it'll never happen right now because of the filibuster. And I think that, if I were running the Senate, what I would do is I would get a consent across the party to end the filibuster and then pass that the next day really quickly before anybody had a chance to figure out what was going on. But I don't know if Chuck Schumer has the ability to do that.
My thing is we need a limited constitutional convention.
No, you don't want a constitutional. You can't have a limited constitutional convention. There's no such thing.
Sure you can. Wolf-pack.com.
Yeah, it's crazy. That is what Charles Koch wants. Charles Koch and the right-wing billionaires every year for years now, for I think at least a decade, have been practicing their constitutional convention in Washington, D.C. Conventionofstates.org or .com is their website. You can see the whole thing. No, you do not want a constitutional convention. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. And welcome back. 10 minutes before the hour. And Matthew in Jefferson County, Texas. Hey, Matthew, what's on your mind today?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I keep listening to your show, and I'm enjoying the show. I keep hearing you talk about the filibuster, how we need to get rid of it. Even if the Senate was like the House, where we had a majority rule, we still couldn't get past what we wanted because we have two senators who aren't really Democrats. So it's not the filibuster that's stopping us. We got Democrats that don't agree with each other.
It's not just those two, Matthew. You've got, I'm not going to name names, but you've got a senator from Delaware who would obstruct any efforts to revive to get the banks under control. You've got senators from, actually, I'm not even going to name states. I know of Democratic senators who would fight climate change, who would fight banking regulation, who would fight big pharma, who would fight, pick one, right? Because what each industry does is they pick 2 or 3 senators on each side that they, for that particular industry, completely own. And, in the House of Representatives, for example, I think it's fairly obvious. Everybody knows Kurt Schrader here in Oregon, Scott Peters in California, Kathleen Rice in New York. They are owned by the pharmaceutical industry.
So why are we acting like the filibuster is the problem then?
The filibuster is the problem. The only reason that we know that Schrader and Rice and Peters and their merry little band are owned by pharma is because there is no filibuster for them to hide behind in the House of Representatives. The only reason that we know that Manchin and Sinema are owned respectively by the fossil fuel industry and the right-wing billionaires is because there is no filibuster in the Senate to hide behind on a reconciliation bill. All these other issues, regulating the airlines, regulating the big monopolies, enforcing anti-monopoly actions, regulating the banks, regulating pharma, all of those issues, you've got Democrats and Republicans who are, on the wrong side of those issues, but you don't know their names because of the filibuster.
Yeah, it's just this. I just really wish. I hope this. I don't know. We saw what happened in 2010 when we played it safe with Obamacare and didn't go progressive enough. We lost the House, and then I think
that was done by reconciliation. That was done by reconciliation and got watered down.
But if you're going to use reconciliation to do something, might as well go big because you're going to lose the House anyways. If you got a year left,
I think he went as big as he could. It was Joe Lieberman, you'll recall, who took $1.3 million from the insurance industry and then said no public option, which would have been the killer in Obamacare. And then, of course, the Supreme Court gutted it. So no, I'm not willing to blame Obama for that. I think he did the best he could, given the circumstances. But the filibuster lets these guys hide. Leo in Putnam County, New York. Hey, Leo, what's up?
Yeah, hi, Tom. Thank you for taking my call. I really enjoy your show, and I'm thinking about maybe a different strategy for the Democrats right now with the Build Back Better plan. Considering that you have Senator Big Pharma from Arizona and Senator Koch from West Virginia not really on board. I don't know if they're going to be on board, but perhaps what the Democrats should do now is just take what they can and concentrate on voting rights. Get what we can so that we get those two people aboard. And from then on, try work on on voting rights, and then
here's the problem, Leo, with the get what you can. This is what Josh Gottheimer, who's another one of the sold-out Democrats, is constantly, the so-called Problem Solvers Caucus, which was created by the so-called No Labels Group, which was created by a bunch of Wall Street hedge funds. And so Josh Gottheimer goes out on TV and says, we need to pass this bipartisan piece of legislation. Well, okay, fine. That bipartisan piece of legislation actually makes the carbon situation in the United States worse, not better, number one. And number two, it does none of these big things. It's got a lot of little tweaks in it, and it throws some money into the highway fund, and it'll help build some bridges and roads, and throw a little money into broadband. But it does so, sort of like the Obamacare, it does so by just pouring money into big corporations. That's why you've got, Republicans going along with it. And so, when Gottheimer says, get what you can, and when you say get what you can, Leo, what you're really saying is abandon the really big things, abandon a genuine progressive strategy, abandon, America's young families, abandon people who want to go to college and get a decent education without being in debt for the rest of their lives. Abandon all those things and just go with a little, corporate-friendly package. And I think that sucks. I'm not willing to do that, Leo. Thanks a lot for the call. Justin in Clyde, North Carolina. Hey, Justin, what's on your mind?
Well, Tom, it's always a pleasure. And, the best part of listening to your program is how you're able to look on the other side of things and bring out an edge to it that, I hadn't realized, just like the last caller. So listening to your little bit on FDR, and he was really, he knew where the bases were loaded and could really speak truth to power and really call it out. And it seems like we've lost that in our modern political climate with the Democrats.
Well, he also had an overwhelming majority in both the House and Senate, so he had a little more latitude than Joe Biden, a lot more latitude than Joe Biden does.
But he also. I have a question. And so the long and the short of it is that also he was a man among men and so much more. But it always seems to come back down to whatever the political crisis, the money. And in your opinion, do you think we'll ever get to a point where all the elections in the country, from dog catcher to president, are publicly funded? And that would, in my opinion, hopefully eliminate all the special interest nonsense. It would eliminate a lot of it. You have to get rid of dark money as well. But I assume that you meant that was rolled into that. This is Congress did this in 1975. Congress passed legislation to fund federal elections, and Jimmy Carter in 1976? Yeah. Jimmy Carter in 1976 ran with federal funding and won the White House. Congress did that in 75. The problem is that inflation happened, and the Supreme Court in 76, with their Buckley decision, said, oh, and by the way, if billionaires want to own a politician, that's cool. They can pour unlimited amounts of money into campaigns because it's called free speech now. And then 2 years later, in 78, the Bellotti decision, they said, by the way, that rule applies to corporations too. They can own politicians as well. And so that federal funding just got wiped out, just got blown out of the water. I mean, it's still in place, right? But nobody's going to use it because, number one, it hasn't been adjusted for inflation. But number two, this dark money monster that the Supreme Court created in 76 and 78 that helped Reagan get elected in 1980 is still with us. And that's what the first, H.R. 1, the For the People Act, it actually takes on that, which is, I think, one of the reasons why it's not going anywhere, sadly. Justin, thank you for the call. We'll be right back. Stick around. It's quite a day here on the Thom Hartmann Program. A lot coming up. The GOP in America and the virus next.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
We say fight back!
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit delivery service. More info at HelloFresh.com, code TOM. CB Distillery, CBD for sleep and pain relief. More info is available at cbdistillery.com, code TOM. Ground News, a well-rounded perspective for newsreaders. More info at ground.news/Tom. Angie, for any project on your to-do list. More info at Angie.com. Dinovite, a whole food supplement for your pet's immune system. More info at Dinovite.com. And ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More information at expressvpn.com/Tom.
Hey, it's a special Halloween fundraiser for Free Speech TV. If you are already on the Free Speech TV mailing list, you've probably gotten a couple of emails kind of warning you that this might be coming, but it's time to raise some money for Free Speech TV. What a fine thing to do for the holiday, for Halloween. And in fact, we've got some frontline funders. This is just a 2-day fundraiser, today and tomorrow, today and Friday. And we've got some frontline funders who have come up with a $10,000 match. So whatever gift you contribute today will be doubled. And that is Deborah in California, Bobby and Vivian in California, Kelly in Colorado, Karen in Colorado, Barbara in California, Barbara in California, Chuck in California, Kayreen in California, Diane in California, Marcy in New York, and Anonymous in California. A big tip of the hat to all the Californians there. And also, Free Speech TV is offering some special treats. With a $100 gift, you get the Free Speech TV limited edition Halloween beanie. And with a $20 gift, you get the Free Speech TV chocolate-covered Halloween Oreo. It doesn't get better than that, right? And so here we are. It's time to, deal with what blood and gore and, well, actually, Karl Marx, of all people, had some things to say about this. He said, capital is dead labor. This is from his book Capital, right? Published around in the 1860s, as I recall. Capital is dead labor that, vampire-like, only lives by sucking living labor and lives the more labor it sucks. The time during which the laborer works is the time during which the capitalist consumes the labor power he has purchased of him. The capital given in exchange for labor power is converted into necessaries, by the consumption of which the muscles, nerves, bones, and brains of existing laborers are reproduced and new laborers are begotten. I bet you didn't know that Karl Marx was talking about zombies. He goes on, he says, it must be acknowledged that our laborer comes out of the process of production other than he entered. Oh, we're transformed by the workplace? In the market, he stood as the owner of a commodity, labor power, face to face with other owners of commodities, dealer against dealer. The contract by which he sold to the capitalist his labor power proved, so to say, in black and white, that he disposed of himself freely. The bargain concluded, it is discovered that he was no free agent. That the time for which he is free to sell his labor power is the time for which he is forced to sell it. That, in fact, the vampire will not lose its hold on him so long as there is a muscle, a nerve, or a drop of blood to be exploited. He goes on, Karl Marx, in this Halloween version of Das Kapital. He goes on to say, we may say that surplus value rests on a natural basis, but this is permissible only in the very general sense that there is no natural obstacle absolutely preventing one man from disburdening himself of the labor requisite of his own existence and burdening another with it, any more, for instance, than unconquerable natural obstacles prevent one man from eating the flesh of another. So, I'm not a Marxist, but I am a fan of Marx's analysis of capitalism. I think I think some of his solutions were wrong, but I think his analysis was pretty solid. So, it is vampire time. It is Halloween, of course, and time to help out Free Speech TV, because Free Speech TV is not engaging in capital. They are not selling products. They are asking for your support.
Free speech TV is more like kind of a, well, I think Karl Marx would approve, kind of a commune or it's a nonprofit. It's a not-for-profit. So your contribution, when you call 877-378-8669 and make your contribution is tax deductible. And like I said, will be doubled because of these frontline funders who have stepped up to say, yeah, we want to help make free speech TV viable. We want to help keep free speech TV going. So our special fundraiser here, again, with a tip of the hat to Deborah and Bobby and Vivian and Kelly and Karen and Barbara and Chuck and Kayreen and Diane and Marcy and Anonymous. And don't forget the Free Speech TV chocolate-covered Halloween Oreo. I'm salivating thinking of it. And with a $20 gift, and the Free Speech TV limited edition Halloween beanie with a $100 gift. Perfect for the kids in your family or for the ghouls in your family. So let's assert some vampire power over our economic system and help support this great nonprofit organization, Free Speech TV, that exists solely, largely anyway, because of your contributions. What a great opportunity to make a contribution today or tomorrow. Today there's a $10,000 match. Your gift up to $10,000 will be doubled by these fine people that I named earlier by calling 877-378-8669 right now. 877-378-8669. Please help out Free Speech TV and keep this network going. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
So back in July, I wrote an article, an op-ed, titled "Death is Their Strategy." In fact, I'm tweeting it right now just so you can follow along with me if you're inclined. And, pretty straightforward thing, saying basically the Republicans are going to use keep in mind, this is several months ago, back in early July, in fact, I think it was July 2nd, saying that the Republicans are going to use death as a way to try to prevail politically in the United States. Now, how does that work? Well, if you can keep the pandemic going, if you can keep people getting sick, if you can keep the hospitals overwhelmed, then you're going to keep people in their homes. If you can keep people from getting vaccinated, everybody's going to know the virus is running rampant out there. Who wants to go to the store? Nobody wants to go to the restaurant or the theater. And this was the Republican strategy. It has been since January 20th. Was keep the economy down. Now, why would they want to keep the economy down by keeping the virus active? Very simple. The one single variable, and you can see this literally throughout all of American history, the one single variable that determines which party controls Congress and which party controls the White House, who wins elections and who loses elections, is the economy. When the economy's doing well, the party in power prospers and gets more votes and gets reelected, and they get more political power. When the economy sucks, the party in power loses the next election. This is so much a truth that when Donald Trump was president, even though the economy during Trump's first 3 years, when it was at its best, was not as good as the Obama economy. Right, the Obama economy the last 4 years of Obama's presidency did way better than Trump's. Trump presided over a softening of the economy, but it was still doing well. But it was softer than it was during Obama. But nonetheless, Trump came out and lied about that. And all the Republicans around him lied about it. And the right-wing media lied about it and said, oh, this is the best economy ever. Why would they lie about it? Because they know that that's what people vote Now, back in July when I wrote this op-ed, and I just laid it out, I said, how can you conclude anything other than the fact that the Republicans want more dead Americans? I asked the question, why did Trump get vaccinated in secret after Biden won the election and his January 6th coup failed? Why did he get arrested? Why did he get vaccinated in secret? Why are Fox News personalities discouraging people from getting vaccinated while refusing to say if they themselves are vaccinated? Like the Pillsbury Doughboy. Why was one of the biggest applause lines at CPAC, and I'm quoting, the government was hoping that they could have sort of sucker 90% of the population into getting vaccinated, and it isn't happening. And the crowd went wild. Yeah, 90% of us are not getting vaccinated. Why are Republican legislatures in states around the country passing laws that would ban private businesses from asking for proof of vaccination? Why? Why would they do this if they don't want more people to die? Can you give me one single possible reason? Why, when President Biden suggested sending volunteers door to door into low vaccination communities to simply pass out literature to let people know where they could get vaccinated, did the right-wing media go nuts with this whole, government thugs are coming to your door to force vaccines on you? They got so hysterical about it, Biden had to pull back the plan. Why? Why did they want to scare people about vaccines? Why is it that about half of all the Republicans in Congress to this day refuse to say whether they're vaccinated or not? Why did Republican Governor Noam of South Dakota downplay the dangers of COVID by bragging that she never shut her state down? How is this bragging rights when South Dakota, her state, has 230 COVID deaths per 100,000 people, and Oregon here, we're at 41 COVID deaths, 66 COVID deaths per 100,000 people. We're at 66, she's at 230, and she's bragging? She killed 4 times as many people as the governor of Oregon did? Or oversaw a government where 4 times as many people died? Yes, she's bragging about it. Noam in South Dakota, she's bragging about it. Because death is their strategy. And I predicted back in July that if they keep doing this, if they can keep this virus active, if they can continue to prevent Americans from getting vaccinated, that you're going to see the economy go to hell. And sure enough, the numbers are out today. This is from today's Washington Post. The U.S. economy grew at an annual rate of 2% in the third quarter, and the latest sign of how the recent Delta variant of the coronavirus held back the economic recovery. The GDP figures for July through September, released Thursday by the Bureau of Economic Analysis, today, came in far lower than the booming 6.7% growth in the previous quarter, reflecting an economy struggling anew. Between the second and third quarter, growth in spending on food services and accommodations slowed significantly as people avoided the indoor spaces and canceled vacations. Why? Because the Republicans have prevented Biden from getting a handle on COVID. Washington Post, that spilled over into the job market for service sector workers who had their hours cut or stayed home out of fear of the virus. See, the Republican plan is working perfectly. Keep the economy down, people will be upset, and they will not vote for Democrats in 2022. The Washington Post notes, where the pandemic goes, the economy goes. And it's true. Death is their strategy. So I guess the question becomes, what do we do about this? It seems to me that, this may be transient if President Biden is not stopped in his vaccine mandates. Now, you've got states that are saying, you can't do this, and it's Texas outlawed vaccine mandates. They outlawed corporations complying with federal law. I'm not sure you can do that. I mean, theoretically, you shouldn't be able to. There's this thing called the Supremacy Clause, but what Biden is doing was not passed by Congress, so arguably it's not a law, it's just an executive order. But how much longer do you think the Republicans are going to be able to hold this up, pull this off? Killing their own people And those who don't die, keep in mind, only about 1% die. But about a third of people who get COVID end up with dementia, which I suppose for Republicans is a big plus. It means they're even more likely to vote for Republicans because their logical thought process don't work anymore. How do we educate America about this? I think, frankly, the most effective way we could do this, because Jair Bolsonaro is running the same strategy down in Brazil. Push people back into the economy. Who cares how many people die? And the Brazilian Senate just issued a 1,200-page summary of their charges against Bolsonaro for mass murder. I think Democrats need to get out ahead of this. I think that Merrick Garland needs to appoint a special prosecutor or whatever it's called these days. I think Congress needs to appoint, Nancy Pelosi right now needs to appoint a select House committee, and Chuck Schumer needs to appoint a select Senate committee with full subpoena power to look into the decisions, particularly the decisions that were made around April 7th of 2020. April 7th was the day that the entire Trump administration and the entire right-wing media outlet universe turned on a dime. Literally turned on a dime. Well, not literally, metaphorically turned on a dime. You'll recall in March, Trump shut the economy down. We got to get this virus under control. In March, Jared Kushner had cut a deal with Louis DeJoy to mail 5 masks to every family in America. They were going to do the right thing. And then on April 7th of 2020, a year and a half ago, on April 7th, the New York Times, the Washington Post, USA Today, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, ABC, CBS, NBC, all of them, their lead story on April 7th was this new study that was published by the federal government in collaboration with a research institution that found that black people were dying at disproportionately high rates of COVID compared to white people. And the next day, April 8th, Rush Limbaugh goes on the air and goes, oh, there's a racial component to this. And that following week, Tucker Carlson suddenly does a U-turn. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe we don't need a mask. Maybe we don't need to be careful about this virus. And everything changed. And as a result, we lost our opportunity to save what, according to Deborah Birx, is hundreds of thousands of lives. She testified before Congress day before yesterday, and she said, I was constantly raising the alert in the doctors' meetings at the depth of my concern about Dr. Atlas's positions. Atlas was the chiropractor or whatever he was that was, actually I think he was actually more than a chiropractor, but whatever, who was running around going, yeah, we need herd immunity. By the way, he's denying now that he was pushing herd immunity, which is bizarre. And she said that she thought that, well, here's her exact quote. I believe if we had implemented the mask mandates, the reduction in indoor dining, the getting friends and family to understand the risk of gathering in private homes, and we had increased testing, that we probably could have decreased fatalities in the 30% less to 40% less range. Now, there were 500,000 people dead when Trump left office. If 40% fewer had died, that's about 200,000 people, if I'm doing the math in my head fast enough, or right. So why don't we charge him with mass murder? Wouldn't that be a great way to expose the Republican strategy? To actually charge Donald Trump and Scott Atlas and the people in the White House, and maybe some of these right-wingers out there who are pushing the idea that you shouldn't get vaccinated, to charge them with mass murder, or complicity in mass murder, or conspiracy for mass murder. And just blow up this whole death as a strategy thing. I really think this should be a campaign, frankly. I think the Democrats need to take this and run with it as hard and as fast as they can. Just like they're doing in Brazil with Bolsonaro.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Get Trump before the International Criminal Court in The Hague. Bring him up on, genocide charges. And welcome back. Let's see here. Greg in Seattle. Hey, Greg, thanks for listening to KBCS. What's up?
Hey, good morning. On the topic of the filibuster, I think a simple majority sounds great. I didn't hear my senators, Murray and Cantwell, on your list of senators that support getting rid of it. And I'm wondering, and my question is, so you get rid of the filibuster, typically in the midterms, the Republicans take over, and then, God forbid, we would get Trump with a majority of Republicans without the filibuster. Could that?
No, it's not. The filibuster is not going to change any of those things. The simple fact of the matter is that without the filibuster, we survive. The filibuster has only been used the way it's being used right now since 2007.
Okay.
And before 2007, we had a functioning republic, right? Reagan did a lot of things that I hated, and he got them through the Senate, in many cases without the filibuster, because Democrats were not routinely filibustering things that they didn't like. They reserved it for things that they thought were like existential threats. And Democrats got a lot of things done during the Clinton administration without a filibuster, because the Republicans weren't routinely filibustering things. This all started when we got our first black president, and Mitch McConnell came in and said, this man is going to have nothing. You'll recall right after he was elected, right after Obama was elected in 2006, was it 2006? 2008. McConnell came out and said, my number one job is to make Barack Obama a one-term president. And that's what he did, or that's what he tried to do. He didn't succeed. But he did succeed in blocking a whole lot of good legislation. Every time we talk about getting rid of the filibuster, the senators who are trying to hide behind it, who are using it as a fig leaf, come out and say, wait a minute, you get rid of the filibuster, terrible things are going to happen. No, they're not. What's going to happen is senators who are trying to do terrible things are going to get outed.
I get the part about the hiding, but a simple majority is a simple majority vote, and whoever has the power at the time. I don't know. I don't know what to think about.
You have to get all of your senators on board. You can't have any defectors. You can't. You have to have the entire House or half of the House of Representatives on board. You have to have the president on board, and it's going to be done publicly. This is, like I said, Sinema and Manchin are twisting in the wind right now because there's no filibuster on the Build Back Better bill because it's going through reconciliation. That's what would happen with every piece of legislation. If the Republicans tried to pass a law saying that, we can declare Trump emperor next week, you would have Republican senators having to come out and say, no, I'm not up with that, or down with that, or yes, I am.
I'm not down with that, Tom.
Yeah. No, I'm serious. It's like they are using this to hide behind, all of them, Democrats and Republicans. And thank God we got 45 Democrats out of 50 who are saying, enough already. We need to get rid of this. We need to pass this voting rights bill. The problem is all the Republicans and the billionaires need to continue being able to buy off senators and have it kept secret is one Democratic senator unwilling to end the filibuster. And they apparently have at least 5 of them. Greg, I got to run, but thank you for the call. It's probably an academic discussion, but you never know. A lot of things happen. A lot of things can change. We'll be right back. It's 22 minutes past the hour. Our 1-hour free podcast recaps our show, and it's available wherever fine podcasts are found. And we have the full 3-hour podcast available over at thomhartmann.com if you want to really support our program. Welcome back. 23 minutes past the hour. Lisa in Newark, Delaware. Hey, Lisa, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. I love the show. I got to tell you, my ears perked up when I heard you mention Senator from Delaware. Now, I'm not sure if that's Coons or Carper, but I'd really like to know where they stand on this, because I'm going to spend the afternoon. I'm calling every damn Democrat in Congress because we've got to get rid of this filibuster. because of the voting.
Yeah.
That is the main thing right now.
Coons has come out. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. Chris Coons has come out and said that he's opposed to ending the filibuster. And, any senator, here's the problem, Lisa. Delaware is a big money state. Delaware is where more than half of the corporations in America are incorporated. So on the one hand, it might be that, Senator Coons is getting a lot of money from those corporations and, doesn't want to betray them. On the other hand, it may be that the economy of the state is so dependent upon them that if he's genuinely doing his job and representing the interests of the state and putting that over the interests of the country as a whole, which arguably his voters elected him to do, then he would take those positions. But in either case, whichever the motivation might be, nobody knows this because he's able to hide behind the filibuster. He can vote for bank regulation. He can vote for corporate regulation, knowing it'll never pass because it'll be filibustered. And he's never forced into a tough vote. And this isn't, and I don't mean to pick on Chris Coons. I think Chris Coons is a great guy. And I think he's a good senator, generally speaking. But this is an example of how the filibuster corrupts people or allows people to function in a corrupt environment without having to own it.
Well, and if we don't get rid of the filibuster and we don't get some protections around voting, they're not going to be elected.
I agree.
The Democrats are going to be history.
We're not going to have an American republic any longer. Yes, the stakes have never, ever been higher. I'm completely with you, Lisa.
That's what keeps me up at night.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And we got to do something about it. Thank you very much for the call, Lisa. Good talking to you. Carrie in New Windsor, New York. Hey, Carrie, what's on your mind?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
I can. We have about a minute and 15 seconds, I think.
Okay. Two things, and putting them both together, the guy called about concern that electric cars would cause fuel the coal industry. So what you had said something about what China's doing about their car batteries with the electric stuff, and then a guy named Jay Qureshi said in a comment on one of your shows, the sun focused to a beam to boil water to drive a steam engine is the only safe way. So instead of people charging their cars sitting around, replacing all gas stations with these drive-through places where in China they have these large flat batteries, you were saying, that fit to the bottom of the car. So they just swap out the old
taxis are
dead
doing this.
battery.
Yeah, the taxis in China are doing this. Yeah, it's like going through a Jiffy Lube.
So you wouldn't. So at these places, they could have these like sun things, boiling water, steam engines, and you wouldn't have to transfer the batteries anywhere. They could just charge them right there when you drive your car through.
I think what we need to do is like the Million Rooftops program where we encourage people to put solar panels on top of their houses. I mean, we've got so many rooftops in America that could be energy sources that are not. It's just crazy. But spot on, Kerry. Thank you very much. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Back with more of your calls and the news of the day right after this break. Stick around. Hey, it's a special Halloween fundraiser for Free Speech TV. If you are already on the Free Speech TV mailing list, you've probably gotten a couple of emails kind of warning you that this might be coming, but it's time to raise some money for Free Speech TV. What a fine thing to do for the holiday, for Halloween. And in fact, we've got some frontline funders. This is just a 2-day fundraiser, today and tomorrow, today and Friday. And we've got some frontline funders who have come up with a $10,000 match. So whatever gift you contribute today will be doubled. And that is Deborah in California, Bobby and Vivian in California, Kelly in Colorado, Karen in Colorado, Barbara in California, Barbara in California, Chuck in California, Kayreen in California, Diane in California, Marcy in New York, and Anonymous in California. A big tip of the hat to all the Californians there. And also, Free Speech TV is offering some special treats. With a $100 gift, you get the Free Speech TV limited edition Halloween beanie. And with a $20 gift, you get the Free Speech TV chocolate-covered Halloween Oreo. It doesn't get better than that, right? And so here we are. It's time to, deal with what blood and gore and, well, actually, Karl Marx, of all people, had some things to say about this. He said, capital is dead labor. This is from his book Capital, right? Published around in the 1860s, as I recall. Capital is dead labor that, vampire-like, only lives by sucking living labor and lives the more labor it sucks. The time during which the laborer works is the time during which the capitalist consumes the labor power he has purchased of him. The capital given in exchange for labor power is converted into necessaries, by the consumption of which the muscles, nerves, bones, and brains of existing laborers are reproduced and new laborers are begotten. I bet you didn't know that Karl Marx was talking about zombies? He goes on, he says, it must be acknowledged that our laborer comes out of the process of production other than he entered. Oh, we're transformed by the workplace? In the market, he stood as the owner of a commodity, labor power, face to face with other owners of commodities, dealer against dealer. The contract by which he sold to the capitalist his labor power proved, so to say, in black and white, that he disposed of himself freely. The bargain concluded, it is discovered that he was no free agent. That the time for which he is free to sell his labor power is the time for which he is forced to sell it. That, in fact, the vampire will not lose its hold on him so long as there is a muscle, a nerve, or a drop of blood to be exploited. He goes on, Karl Marx, in this Halloween version of Das Kapital. He goes on to say, we may say that surplus value rests on a natural basis, but this is permissible only in the very general sense, that there is no natural obstacle absolutely preventing one man from disburdening himself of the labor requisite of his own existence and burdening another with it, any more, for instance, than unconquerable natural obstacles prevent one man from eating the flesh of another. So, I'm not a Marxist, but I am a fan of Marx's analysis of capitalism. I think I think some of his solutions were wrong, but I think his analysis was pretty solid. So, it is vampire time. It is Halloween, of course, and time to help out Free Speech TV, because Free Speech TV is not engaging in capital. They are not selling products. They are asking for your support. Free Speech TV is more like kind of a, well, I think Karl Marx would approve, kind of a commune or well, it's a nonprofit. It's a not-for-profit. So your contribution, when you call 877-378-8669 and make your contribution is tax deductible. And like I said, will be doubled because of these frontline funders who have stepped up to say, yeah, we want to help make Free Speech TV viable. We want to help keep Free Speech TV going. So our special fundraiser here, again, with a tip of the hat to Deborah and Bobby and Vivian and Kelly and Karen and Barbara and Chuck and Kayreen and Diane and Marcy and Anonymous. And don't forget the Free Speech TV chocolate-covered Halloween Oreo. I'm salivating thinking of it. And with a $20 gift, and the Free Speech TV limited edition Halloween beanie with a $100 gift. Perfect for the kids in your family or for the ghouls in your family. So let's assert some vampire power over our economic system and help support this great nonprofit organization, Free Speech TV, that exists solely, largely anyway, because of your contributions. What a great opportunity to make a contribution today or tomorrow. Today there's a $10,000 match. Your gift up to $10,000 will be doubled by these fine people that I named earlier by calling 877-378-8669 right now. 877-378-8669. Please help out Free Speech TV and keep this network going. Thank you.
Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. We have a new video over at ThomHartmann.com for supporters of our program that centers around this clip from 1978.
The energy crisis is real. It is worldwide. It is a clear and present danger to our nation. These are facts, and we simply must face them. What I have to say to you now about energy is simple and vitally important. Point one, I am tonight setting a clear goal for the energy policy of the United States. Beginning this moment, this nation will never use more foreign oil than we did in 1977. Never.
And he continues.
Moreover, I will soon submit legislation to Congress calling for the creation of this nation's first solar bank, which will help us achieve the crucial goal of 20% of our energy coming from solar power by the year 2000.
What could have been, huh? Check it out at ThomHartmann.com. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you and Christine in Asheville, North Carolina. Hey, Christine, what's on your mind today?
Hi. Yeah,
Hey.
I agree with everything you guys said in the last hour or so, but my main fear, I'm 70 years old, and what keeps me up at night, just like the previous lady that was talking earlier, is the Voting Rights Act. If we don't have that, they have not only to give people the, the ability to vote by not intimidating them and all the other things they're trying to do, but mainly the fact that they're taking secretaries of state either out or allowing Republicans in the state house to make decisions about who's going to win.
I'm with you.
So it's just, we're nullified. We're just gone.
Yeah, it's...
And we can't accomplish climate change. We can't, addressing climate change and all the things that we need to do without having the majority. And the thing is, I just heard the other day, I don't know if this is true, but they said Republicans now, like Trump supporters, are something like 30% of the United States. So we're minority ruled.
Yeah, and I think the headline was 30% of American voters think that the last election should be overturned, which is mind-boggling. Although I'm guessing that there was probably 30% of Americans who thought that about the 2000 election, at least pre-9/11. George W. Bush was insanely unpopular.
I thought that because, the fact that Scalia basically gave it to Bush. But,
oh, yeah. Not basically, he did. I mean, that was...
Yeah, he did.
You want your stolen election, there it is.
Yeah.
And we just kind of sat back and watched, which was really, really unfortunate.
Terrible. Can you imagine if we would have had Gore, everything would have been so much better.
It would have been a lot better, yeah, and we probably wouldn't have had a war in Iraq because, I don't think Gore...
Exactly.
Well, Bush had told his biographer a year in advance that he was going to have a war in Iraq, so...
Right.
Anyhow, I got to move along, Christine, but thank you.
Okay.
Excellent point. Thank you for the call. Georgia in Redondo Beach, California. Hey, Georgia, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom.
Hey.
I called my senators. Obviously, I'm from California. I called my senators after you said call about the filibuster. Feinstein's office, at least someone answered. Padilla's didn't. I can't believe that they're not on the list. California senators.
Feinstein has come out and said that she's opposed to ending the filibuster.
Okay, good. I didn't hear her on the list that you gave. I Googled
she was
the
not
list.
on the
and she
list of
wasn't
good
on
people.
the list. Right. I mean,
I shouldn't say keep calling because I'm not asking anybody to harass their senator, but let everybody who could call her office. And I don't know Padilla's position on this at all. I haven't been keeping that close track of him.
It's kind of funny to me because she is very senior and he's very junior.
Yeah.
And he, Anyway, okay, I'm going to keep calling.
Okay, good luck. Thanks, Georgia. Good to hear from you. Bert in Los Angeles. Hey, Bert, what's up?
Hey, how you doing, Tom?
Good.
Listen, where do you stand on the issue of infrastructure and voting rights? Which is more important?
It's a really tough.
I've had you go both ways.
Yeah,
both ways this
I'll give you the argument for each one, Bert. And if we don't do the voting rights, then the election of 2024 will almost certainly be handed to whichever Republican runs for president in 2024 because they're rigging the Electoral College right now.
Now, that's 3 years down the road. And if we don't do the voting rights, there's a good chance that at least in some states in 2022, Republicans will win, in a state where they wouldn't have won otherwise, but they did win because the vote was suppressed effectively. So that's a strong argument for saying, ending the filibuster or drilling a hole in the filibuster specifically for voting rights, the way that they did for budget bills back in 1974, is a good idea. By the way, earlier I said that they started using the filibuster against Obama in 2007. I was wrong. He was not president in 2007. It was 2009. But again, you can look at my piece and read the numbers. My apologies for that error. But back to so that's the argument for saying that we need to drill a hole in the filibuster to get voting rights. The argument for saying that we have to pass both these pieces of both physical and human infrastructure is the argument that Joe Biden made this morning to the Democrats. And it's just now starting to be reported on. What he did is he went before the Democrats, the Democratic caucus, all the senators, all the members of the House, and he said basically there's two things on the line here. The future of the Democratic Party, whether we're going to win the 2022 election, the 2024 election, and the future of my presidency. And if you don't want the Democratic Party to survive, then vote against me. And if you don't want my presidency to succeed, vote against me. Now, I'd like to know who among you doesn't want us to succeed. And this is obviously not literal from what he said. We don't know literally what he said, but that's certainly the implication that I'm hearing from people who were in the room. So I think, and so what he was saying was, if we can pass this, we will be so popular that we will win the elections in 2022 and 24.
When you say this, what should this are you saying?
Both pieces of legislation.
Both pieces, okay.
Both pieces of legislation. And if we can pass this, we will be so popular, we will win the next two elections. And with that political power, we can push back on these Republican laws and probably get the voting, voting changes, improvements in voting, the right to vote, passed. So, I mean, it's kind of a chicken and egg situation. You could argue either one. The path to political power is to pass these two pieces of legislation. The path to political oblivion is to barricade them, to blockade them. On the other hand, the path to having a functional electoral system is to pass the right to vote legislation. But on the other hand, if you can't pass the two big pieces of legislation, even if everybody in the country has a right to vote, you're going to have a lot of people, a lot of independents anyway, particularly the low information voters, who are going to say, well, there go the Democrats again. They can't get a damn thing done. I'm going to go back and try the Republicans. They at least talk big. So, I don't see it as a binary choice, frankly. I think we've got to do all of the above, and we've got to do it all, as quickly as we can. Bert, I got to move along, but thank you for the call. Richard in Huntsville, Texas. Hey, Richard, what's on your mind?
Speaking of calling your senator, about 2 years ago, I emailed Senator Cornyn in reference to the first impeachment. In all caps, I said, no one is above the law. And he sent me this. And I know you don't like to, I'm not going to read the whole letter, but there's just one line here that just sticks out like a sore thumb.
Sure.
Our founding fathers wisely developed of checks and balances to prevent and accumulate excessive power in any single branch of government. I am committed to exercising appropriate congressional oversight to prevent abuses of power whenever and wherever they emerge. I mean, the hypocrisy.
So he was saying that, Richard, at that time, the context for that was he was saying that in defense of his refusing to convict Donald Trump of treason and remove him from office, basically, in the impeachment hearing.
Right. The key here is whenever, and whenever is January 6th. Wherever is our capital.
Right.
I mean, there's other lines here I've highlighted that it's just blatant hypocrisy compared to 2 years later, as in now. I mean, that's what I mean. The hypocrisy is so thick, you can cut it, slice it, and serve it like pizza now.
Well, I think it's just a matter of time before Roger, the publisher of the famous Thesaurus, starts, changing their books so that when you look up the word Republican, you see the word hypocrite. When you look up the word hypocrite, you see the word Republican, because they have become synonyms. And
right, exactly. I agree 100%. The family party, the party of family values is now the party of hypocrisy.
Yeah, there you go.
Exactly. Okay, thanks.
Okay, Richard, thank you very much for the call. It's good to hear from you. Alfredo in Mountain View, California. Hey, Alfredo, what's up?
Yeah, Tom, how are you?
Good.
Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
My question has to do with constituents of Sinema and Manchin. Does the voters in those states have any legal recourse to remove them other than voting? I mean, that's my question, and I'll take my answer of the air.
Do the citizens of individual states to remove their senators? Oh, he hung up. Elections are how we do this. I mean, it's very straightforward. We decide who is going to sit in the Senate by elections. The senators can be removed by their peers. I don't think it's happened in over 150 years. In fact, I'm not even sure it has happened at any point in time. There was an effort to impeach a Supreme Court justice back in the first 30 years of the Republic, but I'm not sure about senators. And that's pretty much it. It's or they can resign from office if they get sufficiently humiliated or pushed or whatever. So anyhow, we'll continue with the conversation. Stick around. We'll be right back. It's 45 minutes past the hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Back with more of your calls in just a moment. Stick around. And welcome back. Whoop, wrong button there. It helps to hit the right button, doesn't it? Albert in Big Sandy, Texas. Hey, Albert, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom.
Hey.
Real quick, I was just going to point out that when you keep saying that 07, the filibuster blew up,
yeah,
and that it was because of Barack Obama, no, he was just a junior senator from Illinois.
Yeah, you're right.
It was when Nancy Pelosi became Speaker of the House.
Okay.
And Nancy Pelosi sent in bills to the Senate that they weren't going to pass.
Thank you for that, Albert. I didn't know that it was Nancy Pelosi there. I did know that. I mean, you look at the chart, and there's this sudden change. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's always good to know what's going on, and sometimes I don't always get it right, or sometimes I miss things. By the way, there's a fascinating piece. I just want to flag this for your attention. A fascinating piece in today's Financial Times, if you get the Financial Times or have the ability to read it. They're talking about fossil fuel prices. Everybody's concerned about inflation right now, and one of the areas where there's tremendous inflation is in the cost of energy. Fossil fuel prices between 2010 and 2014 were over $100 a barrel. And they're not there yet. They're at $85 a barrel, the price of oil right now. But they're heading in that direction. And the reason why is because when the prices went back down again, that in America and in particular, but also around the world, they stopped looking for more fossil fuels. And it's already getting more and more expensive to find, in particular, oil, because they're having to look in places where, it's very expensive and very difficult to find oil in these places. So they're saying the global upstream capital expenditure averaged $320 to $350 billion each in 2020 and 2021. That's about half the level in 2011 to 2014. So the fossil fuel industry itself, the oil industry itself, is not looking for more oil right now. They note in this article in Financial Times, supplies will continue to lag behind demand for the next few years. Excuse me. Fossil fuel, this is something I didn't realize. Fossil fuels accounted for 84% of global energy demand in 2020, unchanged from 1980. The only real change was a slight shift from coal to gas. So, we haven't yet started actually reducing our consumption of fossil fuels. We're right back where we were in 1980. Global demand is responding far more slowly. So anyhow, the bottom line of all this, and what I wanted to share with you about this, is that
expect fossil fuel prices to be high and to continue to be high for the next probably 4 or 5 years. And plug that into your considerations when you're thinking about things that have to do with energy. You know, are you going to, and a lot depends on where you live. If your electricity is produced by fossil fuels, then, you know, it's pretty much hard to avoid. If you live like I do in a place where your electricity is produced by wind or solar or water power, in our case, then, you know, you'd want to, rather than getting a gas water heater, you'd want to get an electric water heater, because electricity prices are not going to go up as rapidly as the fossil fuel prices are, unless your electricity is produced by fossil fuel, which is about 80%, 80 to 85% of all the electricity in the United States now. So just a flag, just an FYI. I want to let you know about that. We will be back in just a minute. It's coming up on 10 minutes before the hour, and I will continue taking your calls right after this. Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. 10 minutes before the hour. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Stan in Champaign, Illinois. Hey, Stan, what's up?
Hey, Tom. Thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to correct something that you said about the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act was passed with 60 votes. It was not passed under reconciliation.
Well, there was a part of it that was passed under reconciliation. It was called the Health Care and Education Reconciliation Act. It was signed on March 31st. The Affordable Care Act itself, the Federal Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, was signed on March 23rd. Those two bills together make up the Affordable Care Act. I'm looking
I think by saying that it takes those two bills to make one bill.
Well, it did, but you know, you're largely right, and I stand corrected, and I thank you for that, George, or Stan, excuse me. You know, it's twice I've been corrected today, and I appreciate it.
Once we got Al Franken recognized as the winner of the Minnesota Senate seat, we had 60 votes.
Yeah.
And that's when the Affordable Care Act was passed, with Al Franken and Ted Kennedy and some other prominent Democrats voting for it, 60 of them.
Good on, yes. And thank you for correcting my memory, Stan. I had my recollection that it was passed exclusively through reconciliation was wrong, and I appreciate that. Thank you, Stan. Alejandro in Miami. Hey, Alejandro, what's on your mind today?
No, Tom, I just wanted to, put some nuance in your, characterization of the Republican plan that, you know, they want to tank the economy in order to win. I would like to preface that with saying that in the red states, I think they have the opposite priority, because they want to get out of COVID, because they want their economies to recover, because they know that their economies are slumping now, like in Florida and other red states, because of COVID-19. Obviously, my state, Florida, was the global epicenter of the virus for many months since the Delta variant, and now it actually hit. It's like the record low. Now Florida has America's lowest COVID rate, right? Of course, let me just give you now. Florida has the fewest daily COVID cases per capita.
Florida has one of the higher vaccination numbers in the country. It's higher than most red states, number one, or many red states. I don't know if it's most.
Of course.
And number two, what you're seeing, I think, is actually herd immunity. You're seeing so many people have gotten infected and gotten sick that, you know, the virus doesn't have any place else to go. So in that regard, you know, Scott Atlas and Ron DeSantis were correct. I mean, the price of that was thousands and thousands of dead people and probably millions of disabled people. And the big problem that they're facing now, and you'll be facing in Florida and in any other red states, where they are believing this BS that Rand Paul is promoting, that natural immunity is superior to vaccine immunity, is that it appears that there's more and more cases of people who had COVID back in 2020, excuse me, and now they're getting it again in 2021. It appears that, you know, the common cold is a coronavirus, and COVID is a coronavirus. And you can get the common cold over and over and over again. Your immunity lasts anywhere from 3 months to a year. And then you're vulnerable to the same cold virus all over again. And it's increasingly looking like that's going to be the case with COVID. And so probably my guess is, and this is pure speculation, but my guess is that what we're going to end up with is something like the annual flu vaccine going forward, where every year, or maybe even twice a year, we all get another shot, another booster shot, and that's how we avoid getting COVID. But the people who think that natural immunity, in quotes, is going to save the day for them, that because they got sick once, they're going to be good forever, like with chickenpox, they are definitely wrong. Chickenpox is not a coronavirus. And,
right.
There would be a price to pay.
Right. And so I wanted to add also that, like, obviously, Fox News and all these conservative pundits are, like, trying to say that, Ron DeSantis' vote vindicates the hands-off policy of Republican governors, who spent the summer prohibiting, local schools, business, governments, and trying to minimize the transmission by requiring masks or vaccination. So in my county, Miami-Dade County, we're at 2% 2% positivity rate. Orlando just went under 5%. So yes, we're improving, but people are getting the wrong, they're getting the wrong take on it, because then they're saying, oh, well, thanks to Ron DeSantis' hands-off policy, that's why we're there today. But it's like, no, Ron DeSantis, as the article I'm reading points out, caused a lot of needless deaths because of his stubbornness. And of course, people want to say, oh, the monoclonal antibodies. Oh, that's great that he pushed the monoclonal antibodies. Never mind that monoclonal antibodies are not for everybody, don't always work for everybody.
But they are cutting into the deaths, Alejandro.
Huh?
They are cutting into the deaths. But you're also seeing a reduction in new infections in Florida. And I think that probably, assuming that DeSantis isn't, fiddling with the numbers, that probably is a reflection of growing herd immunity.
Well, we have over
75% and go ahead.
Yeah. So that we have in Miami-Dade County, I think at least over 75% of us are vaccinated in Miami-Dade County.
There you go.
So yes, I think we have low positivity numbers now.
There you go. And it's a good thing. Alejandro, thanks a lot for the call. Justin in West Hills, California. Hey, Justin, we got a minute left. What's up?
Hey, Tom, I had a quick just anecdote about how I'm hearing how you were talking about the Blue Dog Caucus and saying how there's bipartisanship for the lower bill they want, which is 1.9. And I just wanted to bring up the Safe Banking Act, which is an act that would help people in cannabis be able to do banking. Mm-hmm. And this has huge support in Congress. And what's happened is, though, in the Senate, we have Cory Booker, Senator Schumer, and Ron Wyden, who have said that they'll block that bill from being passed because they want to pass their terrible legalization bill. Jerry Nadler has a much better bill that's backed by the ACLU and over 150 advocate groups, including NORML. My point is just that things that have huge bipartisan support, which is cannabis and net neutrality, we can't even pass because of the Senate.
Yeah. Well, we do need to federally decriminalize cannabis and deal with the problem of cannabis dealers not being able to bank their money. I mean, it's just crazy.
It's a huge safety problem.
I think it's almost an embarrassment of riches, Justin. You've got three different efforts to do it in three different directions. I hope they can get their act together. I really do. We'll be back with David Sirota right after this.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
We say fight back!
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit delivery service. More info at HelloFresh.com, code TOM. CB Distillery, CBD for sleep and pain relief. More info is available at cbdistillery.com, code TOM. Ground News, a well-rounded perspective for news readers. More info at ground.news/Tom. Angie, for any project on your to-do list. More info at Angie.com. Dinovite, a whole food supplement for your pet's immune system. More info at Dinovite.com. And ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More information at expressvpn.com/Tom.
Hey, it's a special Halloween fundraiser for Free Speech TV. If you are already on the Free Speech TV mailing list, you've probably gotten a couple of emails kind of warning you that this might be coming, but it's time to raise some money for Free Speech TV. What a fine thing to do for the holiday, for Halloween. And in fact, we've got some frontline funders. This is just a 2-day fundraiser, today and tomorrow, today and Friday. And we've got some frontline funders who have come up with a $10,000 match. So whatever gift you contribute today will be doubled. And that is Deborah in California, Bobby and Vivian in California, Kelly in Colorado, Karen in Colorado, Barbara in California, Barbara in California, Chuck in California, Kayreen in California, Diane in California, Marcy in New York, and Anonymous in California. A big tip of the hat to all the Californians there. And also, Free Speech TV is offering some special treats. With a $100 gift, you get the Free Speech TV limited edition Halloween beanie. And with a $20 gift, you get the Free Speech TV chocolate-covered Halloween Oreo. It doesn't get better than that, right? And so here we are. It's time to, deal with what blood and gore and, well, actually, Karl Marx, of all people, had some things to say about this. He said, capital is dead labor. This is from his book Capital, right? Published around in the 1860s, as I recall. Capital is dead labor that, vampire-like, only lives by sucking living labor and lives the more labor it sucks. The time during which the laborer works is the time during which the capitalist consumes the labor power he has purchased of him. The capital given in exchange for labor power is converted into necessaries, by the consumption of which the muscles, nerves, bones, and brains of existing laborers are reproduced and new laborers are begotten. I bet you didn't know that Karl Marx was talking about zombies. He goes on, he says, it must be acknowledged that our laborer comes out of the process of production other than he entered. Oh, we're transformed by the workplace. In the market, he stood as the owner of a commodity, labor power, face to face with other owners of commodities, dealer against dealer. The contract by which he sold to the capitalist his labor power proved, so to say, in black and white, that he disposed of himself freely. The bargain concluded, it is discovered that he was no free agent. That the time for which he is free to sell his labor power is the time for which he is forced to sell it. That, in fact, the vampire will not lose its hold on him so long as there is a muscle, a nerve, or a drop of blood to be exploited. He goes on, Karl Marx, in this Halloween version of Das Kapital. He goes on to say, we may say that surplus value rests on a natural basis, but this is permissible only in the very general sense that there is no natural obstacle absolutely preventing one man from disburdening himself of the labor requisite of his own existence and burdening another with it, any more, for instance, than unconquerable natural obstacles prevent one man from eating the flesh of another. So, I'm not a Marxist, but I am a fan of Marx's analysis of capitalism. I think some of his solutions were wrong, but I think his analysis was pretty solid. So, it is vampire time. It is Halloween, of course, and time to help out Free Speech TV, because Free Speech TV is not engaging in capital. They are not selling products. They are asking for your support. Free Speech TV is more like kind of well, I think Karl Marx would approve, kind of a commune or well, it's a nonprofit. It's a not-for-profit. So your contribution, when you call 877-378-8669 and make your contribution is tax deductible. And like I said, will be doubled because of these frontline funders who have stepped up to say, yeah, we want to help make Free Speech TV viable. We want to help keep Free Speech TV going. So our special fundraiser here, again, with a tip of the hat to Deborah and Bobby and Vivian and Kelly and Karen and Barbara and Chuck and Kayreen and Diane and Marcy and Anonymous. And don't forget the Free Speech TV chocolate-covered Halloween Oreo. I'm salivating thinking of it. And with a $20 gift, and the Free Speech TV limited edition Halloween beanie with a $100 gift. Perfect for the kids in your family or for the ghouls in your family. So let's assert some vampire power over our economic system and help support this great nonprofit organization, Free Speech TV, that exists solely, largely anyway, because of your contributions. What a great opportunity to make a contribution today or tomorrow. Today there's a $10,000 match. Your gift up to $10,000 will be doubled by these fine people that I named earlier by calling 877-378-8669 right now. 877-378-8669. Please help out Free Speech TV and keep this network going. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. On the line with us is our old buddy David Sirota. He's also the founder of the Daily Poster, a great daily newsletter you can get in your email box at no charge. You can tweet him at David Sirota. He's also the narrator and executive producer of a new podcast available over at audible.com. It's titled Meltdown. And he's also got a movie coming out. So I just want to bounce a couple things off him. David, welcome back. It's great to have you on. Tell us about, first of all, your piece in the Rolling Stone, Democrats' Betrayals Are Jeopardizing American Democracy. I believe this is kind of at the center of Meltdown, of your new podcast.
It is, and thanks for having me on. The basic argument is...
David, if I could interrupt you, if you could get your mouth closer to the microphone, it sounds like you're talking from an echo chamber here.
Sure, is that better?
That's much better. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So listen, the connection between economic policy and democracy, I think, is not all that well appreciated in our larger media conversation. Bernie Sanders, as an example, has said that if we do not deliver real material help to people right now, that it will only fuel a push for the assault on democracy. It will only fuel authoritarians.
And cynicism.
What I think he means is that essentially, if people keep voting for change, and politicians keep promising that they're going to deliver real change, if politicians keep promising specific policies, and then politicians get into office and side with their corporate donors and don't deliver that real change, then what the meta message being sent to voters is, your vote doesn't really matter that much. That your vote isn't that important. And so then when you go to voters and you say, please vote for us, at least for us to protect democracy, voters are saying, I just used the democratic process to vote for you. You promised me change, and you didn't deliver change. So as it relates to the current situation with the reconciliation bill, this is what's on the line. If they do not really deliver real material help to people, a lot of people are going to be wondering, what happened in the last election? Was the last election worth it? And the cautionary tale is in our new podcast series, which is what happened in 2009 and 2010. The Obama administration came in making all sorts of promises to get tough on Wall Street, to deliver real help to millions of homeowners. And what ended up happening was a very top-down bailout, which gave most of its money to a handful of financial institutions. There was not a lot of aid delivered to regular homeowners. And ultimately, that helped create the backlash conditions, first for the Tea Party and then for Donald Trump.
Yeah, and frankly, we don't want to see that repeated. Well, in fact, I was talking with a caller in the last hour about this. You know, on the one hand, you want to blow up the filibuster and pass voting rights legislation because Republicans are messing with our right to vote, setting up the theft of the 2024 election, frankly. And on the other hand, if they don't pass both of these pieces of legislation, then there's going to be a real crisis like you described. Cynicism will reign once again, and there will be, even if we have voting rights, we'll be screwed going forward. It's a real tough one. It's a real tough one. And right now you've got Democrats, progressive Democrats, who are being asked to trust the Josh Gottheimers of the world and just pass the corporate, the so-called bipartisan piece of legislation, infrastructure legislation, and just wait on the other one. Don't worry, we'll get to it. I'm very skeptical about that. What are your thoughts as a former speechwriter for Bernie and a good observer of the politics of this? What do you think? Oh, he dropped off? Oh, I don't know how that happened. Okay. David, I'm sorry. You're back on the air.
Yeah, I am. I think the idea of taking a deal, the idea of not having there actually even be a deal, I think it's a very dangerous prospect. I mean, I think you've already got Kyrsten Sinema, who's out there to just right in the last few minutes. She put out a statement not even committing to the so-called White House frame. She said, it's good progress. So I think the potential chances for a bait and switch here are very real. I think we have to be honest about it. One of the big problems here is that the Progressive Caucus, which has a lot of leverage here still, they need that caucus's vote to pass the infrastructure bill, that they haven't been clear about what their red lines are. They have made statements that they want the reconciliation bill to be robust. They've made statements saying that they want it to be strong, but those are fungible words. They haven't said, listen, X, Y, and Z needs to be in the reconciliation bill, or you're not getting our votes. And that I think has facilitated and allowed for this sort of haggling situation where the reconciliation bill has just been cut and cut and cut over weeks and weeks and weeks. As Sinema and Manchin, every single day they make some declaration. I don't like the tax policy. I don't like the paid leave policy. Manchin and Sinema have been able to essentially put these statements out that prompt the Democrats to gut their own bill.
Yeah, it is a betrayal from within that is, I don't recall any time in my lifetime other than Joe Lieberman blowing up the public option where we've seen Democrats be so completely and thoroughly betrayed by other Democrats. Do you?
No, but I think the Lieberman example is right. And I know people use this term, the rotating villain. That the rotating villain, for whatever reason, there always seems to be one or two of these people who are sabotaging the party's promised agenda. Now, if you're cynical, you say, look, the rotating villain is actually deliberate. Like, that these people actually represent more members.
I think this is the Koch network, the right-wing billionaire network. I think this is their strategy. They don't need to own every Democrat. They only need to own one or two in the Senate. They only need to own 10 or 20 in the House. So, they fully own the ones that they really need to own. And when push comes to shove, those people come out. And then the second part of that whole strategy, in the Senate anyway, is maintain the filibuster so that when, for example, if there was legislation to regulate the banks, there are senators who are owned, Democratic senators who are owned by banks who would probably vote against it if there were no filibuster, if it was a 50-vote thing, and they would get outed, and they would be the subject of all this public outrage that Manchin and Sinema are now experiencing. But they don't have to do that. They can vote for the legislation and pretend they're in favor of it, knowing that it's going to be killed by the filibuster, by the Republicans. So it's like this fig leaf that everybody gets to hide behind. And by the way, it's not just Democrats who do this. Republicans do it too.
Of course, and that is the problem. And I keep going back to, it's not like this is a new problem. Yeah. This is exactly what happened in 2009 and 2010. And the reason we did this podcast series, Meltdown, now, is not to just complain about the past, but to say, look, the past is screaming at us, at the Democrats, to not do this. This is exactly what they did to disastrous consequences that led to Donald Trump. Now, there's another story from history that we also talk about, which is the opposite of what happened in 2009 and 2010. In the 1930s, you know this better than anybody, Franklin Roosevelt came into power in a similar crisis and decided, listen, we have to actually deliver real help to people immediately. And the interesting thing is that FDR explicitly acknowledged and understood that doing that wasn't just an economic necessity, that it was a political necessity to preserve democracy. There's all sorts of passages, quotes, of FDR saying basically the way to preserve democracy is to show people that democracy, a democratic, small d democratic government, works for people. That if you do not do that, that you're running the risk of right-wing authoritarians saying, you see, the democratic process doesn't work. I mean, there was a quote from him about other countries losing their democracy. I'll butcher it here a little bit, but it's basically that he said other countries have seen their democracies fall, not because people don't like democracy, but because they saw inept government, and ultimately people decided to sacrifice liberty and democracy in the name of getting something to eat. And the point is, if you keep showing people that they're voting, they're using democratic institutions to vote people into power, and then the people in power do not deliver on their promises, you're essentially telling people democracy is not worth defending. That is the danger here. That is what Donald Trump seized on, and that is what another Trump, or maybe even Trump himself, will seize on if the Democrats do not deliver what needs to be delivered right now.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you. David, you also participated in this new movie, Don't Look Up, with Leo DiCaprio. Tell us about it.
Sure. It's a movie coming out on Netflix at the holiday season. It is, without giving away too much about it, it is the story of an asteroid is headed towards Earth, and a pair of scientists are doing everything they can to try to warn the government and use the media to get the government to respond properly about it. It's a hilarious movie, but it's also an important movie in this way. Some people I've heard about it, they think it's a climate movie. Other people think it's a pandemic movie. But what it really is about, Tom, is about whether our system, our media, our political system, has a capacity to take indisputable facts, process those facts, and respond properly and rationally to those facts. Or is that system, that media and political system, so corrupt and so focused on frivolizing everything that we can't even constructively process basic facts anymore? That's the central question of the movie.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. The trailer is dynamite. If people can check it out, it's going to be. You said the holiday season. You mean Thanksgiving, Christmas?
No, around the Christmas season. That's right, in December.
Okay, cool. David Sirota, he's got a new podcast, Meltdown, available over on where is it? Audible.
On Audible.
There we go. And also check out thedailyposter.com. David, thanks a lot for dropping by.
Thank you, Tom. As always, thanks.
Thank you. Always great talking with you. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
More of the news of the day and your calls right after this. 17 minutes past the hour. And welcome back. Let's see here. Jessica, watching us on Free Speech TV in Chicago. Hey, Jessica, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. You are so right about the Republicans just want to keep the fear of COVID in our country. An American dies every 80 seconds in the USA. And our governor in Illinois has a mask requirement in stores. Yesterday, I encountered 2 mask holes in the store. And I was being nice. I kept my distance, avoided them. And then it came to checking out, and they opened up a lane next to them. So I gave them a wide path. But the man took off his mask and started coughing and sneezing, and I couldn't hold back anymore. I told him, put that mask on. You are the reason this is out of control. And I said to the woman, she never had a mask in the first place, I said, they have masks at the front of the store. You put one on. And Tom, the manager ran and got her one, and she did put it on.
Whoa.
But
good on you, Jessica.
I have enough of all this stuff. Yeah. But the amazing part is the cashier thanked me, and she just said thank you. And then I said, do you have your booster? Because I worry about the poor people in the store.
Yeah.
And she nodded and said thank you and said yeah. And these people, we're surrounded by still idiots in Chicago too that don't want to get the vaccine. So you never know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a strategy. Death is their political strategy. It's absolutely criminal in my opinion. Jessica, thank you. Thanks for the story, and good on you for speaking up. I'm impressed. That's bravery. John in Bellingham, Washington. Hey, John, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Gosh, been listening to you for eons, but 6 or 7 years, well, until they replaced you on AM radio with oldies. But anyway, several years ago, this guy called in, and I have never gotten it out of my mind. And he was, I think, calling from Silicon Valley. And he was saying that he had an algorithm which would solve gerrymandering.
Mm-hmm.
And he said it was, an algorithm doesn't consider economic standing or race. It just
it can.
Population.
An algorithm is basically just a process running based on a mathematical formula, but you get to determine the inputs. And so if one of the inputs is race, then you can have a very racist algorithm. But
you could leave that out too.
Yeah, but I think what California has done, and several other states as well, is just created nonpartisan, professional, kind of wonky commissions that draw the political boundaries and just let the chips fall where they may. It's based on population.
Well, why couldn't you just allow a computer to do that?
Oh, I'm sure computers play a big role in it.
Well, I know. Okay. So anyway, it was just a thought. I thought, this is one good reason, good way to eliminate gerrymandering.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, John. We need to get rid of gerrymandering. It is a cancer, and it's getting worse rather than better because they're using computers to tweak it to make it worse. But spot on. John, thank you for the call. It's 21 minutes past the hour. I'll be back in 60 seconds. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. We're available on SiriusXM, Free Speech TV, Pacifica, commercial stations nationwide, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on the Thom Hartmann app, and you can even tell your smart speaker to listen to the Thom Hartmann Program. The media is pushing this crazy narrative that with regard to masks and vaccines and COVID and all this kind of stuff, that America is divided. Half of us want masks and half of us don't, or half of us want vaccines. It's just not true. 75% of Americans have received at least one dose of vaccine. 70% of Americans think that we should have mask mandates in all of our schools. Only 17%, this is from the latest Pew studies, polling, only 17% of Americans are opposed to mask mandates in schools. And what we have is this tiny fringe that is being cranked. Now we're learning from China as well as from Russia and perhaps other countries, plus the people in, a relatively small number of people, Trump followers, who think that tearing the country apart is a good thing and somehow it'll hurt Joe Biden and hurt the Democrats in the next election. It's crazy. I got a whole video rant about this over at thomhartmann.com that you can check out. And welcome back. 23 minutes past the hour. It's the Thom Hartmann Program. And I got a geeky science here for you, and it's a fascinating one. This is about, you ever heard of phthalates? You probably have. It's been around for a while. Phthalates, interestingly, it's spelled with a PH. But phthalates are the chemicals that cause fish to become different genders and cause frogs to become sterile or to have multiple genders. They are famous, phthalates, for the way that they screw up fertility, reproduction problems, the endocrine system. They also cause, we know in human beings, learning difficulties, attention, and behavioral disorders in children. So this new study that was just published day before yesterday, and it was, let me find where it was published. It was published from the GWU Milken School of Public Health, George Washington University's School of Public Health. And it was published in the Journal of Exposure Science and Environmental Epidemiology on Tuesday, peer-reviewed journal. What they found, this study found small amounts of industrial chemicals called phthalates, which are used to make plastics soft, in fast food. It's all over fast food, particularly McDonald's, Pizza Hut, and Chipotle, according to this. George Washington University's researcher Loriah Edwards, Professor I.M. Zota, and their colleagues purchased 64 fast food items from national burger chains, McDonald's and Burger King, pizza chains, Pizza Hut and Domino's, Tex-Mex chains, Taco Bell and Chipotle, all around San Antonio. They found harmful chemicals in the majority of samples collected. This is not good. And, they banned phthalates from toys because kids were, chewing on their toys and getting these things, and they're destructive. But they haven't banned them from the conveyor belts that carry food when it's processed food, when the little, the burgers are on their way or whatever, whether it's processed food for fast food restaurants or whether it's processed foods for the stuff that you buy and then you microwave. These things are apparently laced with phthalates, according to this study. They said industrial tubing, food conveyor belts are made pliable with this, as well as the gloves that the food handlers carry are rich in phthalates, and they migrate from those foods into the foods we ingest. The researchers found that more than 80% of the food samples contained a phthalate called DNBP, which has been linked to heightened risk for asthma, and 70% contained a phthalate called DEHP, which is found to be linked to an increased risk of reproductive problems. 68% of all the foods that they tested contained a plasticizer called DEHT, which was developed to replace phthalates, but it turns out it may be just as toxic. This is remarkable. And then they point out that people who eat food cooked at home. This I'll quote from previous research by Zota, professor of environmental occupational health at GWU's Milken School of Public Health, showed that people who cook their food at home have lower levels of these chemicals in their bodies, probably because home cooks do not use food handling gloves or use plastic packaging. Surprise, surprise. So big deal. And they also point out disadvantaged neighborhoods often have plenty of fast food outlets, but limited access to healthier foods like fruits and vegetables. And so their children are exposed to much higher levels of phthalates. Keep your eyes on this. This is going to be a big deal. We are poisoning our children here in the United States because we won't follow the precautionary principle. A lot of these chemicals are outlawed in Europe, by the way. We'll be back with your calls after this.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's talk media for the rest of us, the Thom Hartmann Program. We'll be right back on the other side.
Hey, it's a special Halloween fundraiser for Free Speech TV. If you are already on the Free Speech TV mailing list, you've probably gotten a couple of emails kind of warning you that this might be coming, but it's time to raise some money for Free Speech TV. What a fine thing to do for the holiday, for Halloween. And in fact, we've got some frontline funders. This is just a 2-day fundraiser, today and tomorrow, today and Friday. And we've got some frontline funders who have come up with a $10,000 match. So whatever gift you contribute today will be doubled. And that is Deborah in California, Bobby and Vivian in California, Kelly in Colorado, Karen in Colorado, Barbara in California, Barbara in California, Chuck in California, Kayreen in California, Diane in California, Marcy in New York, and Anonymous in California. A big tip of the hat to all the Californians there. And also, Free Speech TV is offering some special treats. With a $100 gift, you get the Free Speech TV limited edition Halloween beanie. And with a $20 gift, you get the Free Speech TV chocolate-covered Halloween Oreo. It doesn't get better than that, right? And so here we are. It's time to, deal with what blood and gore and, well, actually, Karl Marx, of all people, had some things to say about this. He said, capital is dead labor. This is from his book Capital, right? Published around in the 1860s, as I recall. Capital is dead labor that, vampire-like, only lives by sucking living labor and lives the more labor it sucks. The time during which the laborer works is the time during which the capitalist consumes the labor power he has purchased of him. The capital given in exchange for labor power is converted into necessaries, by the consumption of which the muscles, nerves, bones, and brains of existing laborers are reproduced and new laborers are begotten. I bet you didn't know that Karl Marx was talking about zombies. He goes on, he says, it must be acknowledged that our laborer comes out of the process of production other than he entered. Oh, we're transformed by the workplace? In the market, he stood as the owner of a commodity, labor power, face to face with other owners of commodities, dealer against dealer. The contract by which he sold to the capitalist his labor power proved, so to say, in black and white, that he disposed of himself freely. The bargain concluded, it is discovered that he was no free agent. That the time for which he is free to sell his labor power is the time for which he is forced to sell it. That, in fact, the vampire will not lose its hold on him so long as there is a muscle, a nerve, or a drop of blood to be exploited. He goes on, Karl Marx, in this Halloween version of Das Kapital. He goes on to say, we may say that surplus value rests on a natural basis, but this is permissible only in the very general sense that there is no natural obstacle absolutely preventing one man from disburdening himself of the labor requisite of his own existence and burdening another with it, any more, for instance, than unconquerable natural obstacles prevent one man from eating the flesh of another. So, I'm not a Marxist, but I am a fan of Marx's analysis of capitalism. I think some of his solutions were wrong, but I think his analysis was pretty solid. So, it is vampire time. It is Halloween, of course, and time to help out Free Speech TV, because Free Speech TV is not engaging in capital. They are not selling products. They are asking for your support. Free Speech TV is more like kind of a, well, I think Karl Marx would approve, kind of a commune or it's a nonprofit. It's a not-for-profit. So your contribution, when you call 877-378-8669 and make your contribution is tax deductible. And like I said, will be doubled because of these frontline funders who have stepped up to say, yeah, we want to help make Free Speech TV viable. We want to help keep Free Speech TV going. So our special fundraiser here, again, with a tip of the hat to Deborah and Bobby and Vivian and Kelly and Karen and Barbara and Chuck and Kayreen and Diane and Marcy and Anonymous. And don't forget the Free Speech TV chocolate-covered Halloween Oreo. I'm salivating thinking of it. And with a $20 gift, and the Free Speech TV limited edition Halloween beanie with a $100 gift. Perfect for the kids in your family or for the ghouls in your family. So let's assert some vampire power over our economic system and help support this great nonprofit organization, Free Speech TV, that exists solely, largely anyway, because of your contributions. What a great opportunity to make a contribution today or tomorrow Today, there's a $10,000 match. Your gift up to $10,000 will be doubled by these fine people that I named earlier by calling 877-378-8669 right now. 877-378-8669. Please help out Free Speech TV and keep this network going. Thank you. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. Hey, we've got a new video up over at ThomHartmann.com about Big Mail-In. You heard about this? Now, I'm not talking about the George Bernard Shaw play that got made into the movie My Fair Lady and all that kind of stuff. No, this is a PR firm in France. And, you know, when you hear from Americans that, oh, we could never put Donald Trump in jail because only third world countries do that. France is not only not a third world country, they're our oldest ally. And they just convicted their former president for the second time of fraud and corruption around the way he was running his campaigns. Nicolas Sarkozy. They just convicted him a second time. Now, he's appealing both of them. He's, you know, walking around with an ankle bracelet. But, you know, I've got all the details on this video over at ThomHartmann.com. You can check it out. But, you know, again, next time somebody says, we can't put Trump in jail, tell them, hey, France did. And welcome back. Just today is the day for corrections, right? Two people have called in today and pointed out errors that I made in various proclamations of mine. And I appreciate that. When I get things wrong, I want to make sure that they're right. I want people to know that when they're watching this show that the information they're getting is solid. And in both cases, they were things that I was just saying off the top of my head, and I should have checked my facts. And so, you know, generally speaking, that doesn't happen. But it did today. But this correction has to do with a caller. Somebody called in from Florida and said, hey, our numbers are going down. Our COVID numbers are going down. And so I speculated on the air, well, maybe it's herd immunity. You know, maybe, I mean, you would expect that to happen. Plus, you know, Florida has a very high vaccination rate. Well, over on Twitter, let me see if I can acknowledge the person who sent this to me, if it's still showing. No, it's not. I'm sorry, I've lost it. But anyway, over on Twitter, somebody tweeted me saying, hey, wait a minute. That's not what's going on. And they tweeted me a copy of an article from The Hill. This was the headline, Florida reported artificial decline in COVID-19 deaths as cases were surging. And here's how they did it. Slick trick, Ron DeSantis. Florida's Department of Health changed the way COVID-19 deaths are counted in the state as the Delta variant was spreading, which led to an artificial decline in deaths. The Miami Herald reported Monday that the state's shift in how it reported deaths gave the appearance that the pandemic was declining, based on analysis of Florida data conducted by the newspaper along with El Nuevo Herald. Until 3 weeks ago, according to the Herald, data collected by Florida and then posted by the CDC tallied deaths on the date they were recorded, which is the reportedly common practice. On August 10th, however, the state changed its methodology and started counting daily new deaths by the date the person died instead of the date the death was registered. When recording COVID deaths with a new method, which focuses on date of death, the numbers will generally appear to be on a recent downward slope, even during the current surge, because it takes a certain amount of time to evaluate deaths and process death certificates. Now, apparently they're referencing August here, so this might be kind of old news, but anyhow, just because Ron DeSantis, I guess the moral of the story is if Ron DeSantis says it, be skeptical. Oh, my. Pam in Chicago. Hey, Pam, what's on your mind today? Thank you for calling.
Hi, Tom. I've heard so much since I initially called. But I guess first let me just state, Tom, the activist community is very upset with this Build Back Better negotiation. And isn't it interesting that Manchin and Sinema both told us what they wanted, just as Joe Biden on the eve of his trip to Europe, right?
Right.
And so now Nancy Pelosi, it seems to me, is putting more pressure on the progressives. In other words, telling them don't embarrass Biden while he's on the world stage by not passing his agenda. That's just really, really concerning to me. But initially, Tom, here's where I am. Civil war. And let me just explain what I'm talking about. Okay. Tom, with the Republican Party, what if they've already determined that this Democratic Republic isn't working for them? So they've already decided that they're going to go with the oligarchies, right? And they're going to go with the dictatorship. And it was really kind of introduced by Trump. But it just seems to me this is something that they've been floating all along. So they've decided to go full force. And I don't know the stages of war, Tom, or what leads up to a civil war, but I believe that we're in it. And it's because of the promotion of the hate speech. They have a communication outlet in Fox that is promoting it. And now we just see all of the bullying, the violence from local levels to the school board, all the way throughout the Republican Senate, right? The House members. So I believe they have declared war on this country and have said that the Democratic Republic isn't a system that can work for them because their numbers are dwindling. They don't want to be inclusive. So let's just go on the premise that they've decided this time. What are we then? What is our response? So I'm saying they've already said of civil war, and I don't know what stage this would be in, but it's an emotional, it's a psychological. Yeah. And I'm really concerned. And lastly, I'm going to say on the Build Back Better piece, Tom, whatever passes, they're going to try to sell it to us, the Democratic voters, as if this was a win. And we don't feel like that. So I don't want Joe Biden or any of the other elected representatives trying to con us with this. I know something is better than nothing. We get that. But we're not feeling like this is a win. And when you try to push that on people, you start to feel like you're being conned and manipulated.
Yeah, I totally get it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It makes a lot of sense.
And I'm by no means supporting anything Republican because they've abdicated everything on trying to negotiate something. They don't even care about the working class, poor, middle class.
Yeah. With regard to your, I agree with your analysis, Pam, and I also agree with your analysis about the Republican Party, and that's the big divide. That's the Steve Schmidt and Nicole Wallace Republicans versus the John Cornyn and Mitch McConnell Republicans. The institutional Republicans, the elected Republicans, have decided to throw in with Trump, and Trump is clearly anti-democracy, small d democracy. And openly, and any Republican that's going along with this big lie BS is basically saying that they've declared war on American democracy, on our republic. I completely agree with you. I think we're still at that kind of shock and how did it get here phase. And if you look at what has happened in numerous countries around the world, the one most famously, it's Myanmar with the Rohingya, where Facebook was responsible for a genocide. Hundreds of thousands of people killed because of Facebook, because their algorithms were pushing out crazy stuff, accusing the Rohingya, the Muslim minority, of committing all kinds of crimes. These are phony things that were pushed out by the Myanmar military. They wanted an excuse to commit the genocide, but Facebook facilitated it. It appears that the same thing is happening in Poland right now. Poland is on the verge of civil war, in large part because of Facebook. And frankly, I think that that's what's going on here in the United States. Their algorithm, when they added the anger button, they added, some years back, they added these 5 buttons where you can click a button. Instead of just the like button, you could also click a smiley face or an unhappy face or an angry face. And that angry button, according to an article I read in yesterday's Financial Times, Zuckerberg and his buddies said, okay, we'll give the anger button 5 times the juice of the like button. In other words, they tweaked their algorithm to drive anger from one person to another because anger engages people, and they need to keep people engaged so that they can sell Facebook users to advertisers. The product that Facebook sells is the people who go and post things on Facebook. That's the product that they sell, and they sell it to their advertisers. And the more pissed off those people are, the more likely they are to stay on Facebook and engage with it. By the way, it's not just Facebook, but it's largely Facebook. They're the largest in the world. And I don't know if it's too late to stop it, Pam. I mean, now you see, right-wing groups and people associated, and
Sure.
The Daily Poster, I believe it was, did a great deep dive on this a week or so ago that I talked about at length on this program, where you find all these school board attacks that are happening, and they're being incited by people who are formerly associated with the right-wing billionaire networks. And
Well, Tom,
go ahead.
Here in Chicago, the head of our Fraternal Order of Police, Captain Zaro, he had a little mini insurrection protest because the officers, he doesn't want the officers to get the vaccine or even disclose their status as to whether or not they've been vaccinated.
Yeah.
I mean, so they had a protest here, and you had some looked like some hate group participants, and one of our councilmen, who is, our government, we have the mayor, and then we have 50 councilmen. One of the councilmen said it was downright scary.
Yeah. No, and here in Portland, I mean, this is from yesterday's newspaper. OregonLive.com is the website for the Oregonian, our statewide newspaper. And the headline, Portland School Board meeting temporarily shut down by unmasked anti-vax protesters. And, these mask holes showed up at this protest or at a school board meeting and started yelling and screaming obscenities and all this kind of stuff. And after 15 minutes, the school board chair, Michelle DePass, canceled the meeting basically and said, okay, we're going to do this virtually so that these mask holes can't disrupt us. And then the newspaper says, several anti-mask, anti-vaccine demonstrators confessed to traveling from other cities in Oregon and Washington state. Well, how did they even know that the Portland School Board was meeting? How did they know where they were meeting and when they were meeting? People who don't live in Portland and who wanted to show up and just raise hell. Probably Facebook, but somebody is pushing this stuff into Facebook. Somebody is pushing this stuff. They're doing it to try to destroy our democracy.
We're having an infiltration.
Yeah, this is the Civil War that you're talking about, Pam. Absolutely. And we need to start taking it seriously.
Last question, Tom. When are we going to get out of denial? And who is going to have a come to Jesus meeting with President Biden and Vice President Harris about this? Because it seems like Biden is in denial. I get it. You want to work together. You want to be inspired. It's not happening.
Yeah.
So someone needs to pull his coattail and tell him the truth.
I think the big one is Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland has to start taking this stuff seriously. The Justice Department, when people show up at school board meetings and start making threats, they should be arrested. Public disruption like that is against the law. It's 46 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Back with your phone calls in just a moment. Fair and only slightly unbalanced. Thom Hartmann here with you. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Jim in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Hey, Jim, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Thanks for taking my call. It's good to hear.
Sure. Jim, your microphone sounds really badly distorted. I don't know if you've got your thumb over it or something.
Tom, is this okay?
Yeah, it sounds better. What's up?
Okay, Tom, thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
And your appropriate costume. You are the modern day
Robin Hood?
the modern day Robin Hood. I thought it was really appropriate for you having that costume.
Thank you.
Anyways, Tom, listen, I've been listening to you religiously for a long time. And I'm a progressive liberal Democrat, 62 years old, living on Social Security. And I tell you what, I just have been seeing for the last at least prominent 20 years of the Democratic Party, Tom, literally eating themselves within. We just can't seem to join together like these freaking...
Well, I can tell you what happened, Jim. In 1980, when Reagan came into office, the Democratic Party was largely funded through unions. We had a third of American workers were unionized. The unions were fat and happy. They had a lot of money. They gave it to Democratic politicians. Republicans, on the other hand, were taking their money from corporations and rich people. Ronald Reagan took power, declared war on unions, and 12 years later, when the Reagan-Bush administration ended, we were down to about 10% of Americans being unionized. We're at 6% right now in the private workforce. And the result of that was that in 1992, when Bill Clinton wanted to run for president, there was not enough money from the unions to elect a person as president. So him and Al Fromm got together and created this thing called the DLC, the Democratic Leadership Council. And they went to big corporations and they said, we're going to be very selective. We're not going to take money from evil corporations. We're not going to take it from the fossil fuel industry or, people who make military weapons. But we will take money from banks, from insurance companies, from pharmaceutical manufacturers, things like that, because those are white-collar jobs, and from big tech. And, for about 15, 20 years, 20-plus years, from then until now, a large chunk of the Democratic Party has been funded by industry. Cleaner industries, yeah, but industry. And that's a problem. We've only, the Congressional Progressive Caucus only had like 20 members the first time. I spoke at a fundraiser of theirs with Raul Grijalva like 15 years ago when they were just kicking the thing off. And it was like, 15, 20 members. Now it's almost 100. So you've got more and more members of Congress who are saying, we're not going to take that corporate money anymore. We're going to do the people's work, and we're going to depend on individual donations coming in via the internet. But, we've got to hit all of the Democrats doing that if we're going to flush out the mansions and cinemas from the system.
Well, exactly, Tom. That's what I'm trying to say, and I understand everything you just explained to me. I'm well aware of that. The problem is, are you hearing me, Tom?
I am.
Oh, okay. The problem is, it just seems like the Democrats cannot operate I'm sorry, I'm going to use the word fascist Republican Party. How they stick together like glue, and we always have fractions. We eat each other from within. Perfect example, Al Franken. That man had no business. He was a great senator. That man had no business being kicked out. And you know what? There was members of the Democratic Party that got rid of him.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, Jim. Jim, I'm sorry, we're hitting a break here. I got to run, but thank you. The Democrats need to get their act together. To a certain extent, though, the problem there was created by the Supreme Court, saying that billionaires and rich people and big corporations can fund politicians, and we've got to change that. It's 10 minutes before the hour. Our 1-hour free podcast recaps our show, and it's available wherever fine podcasts are found. And we have the full 3-hour podcast available over at thomhartmann.com if you want to really support our program. So we have a new video up over at thomhartmann.com. It's about 18 U.S. Code 2384, which is a law that was published back in put on the books on June 25th, 1948. It was updated in 1956. And it's very, very straightforward. It says, if two or more persons in any state or territory or in any place subject to the jurisdiction of the United States conspire to overthrow, put down, or destroy by force the government of the United States, or to levy war against them, or to oppose by force the authority thereof, or by force to prevent, hinder, or delay the execution of any law of the United States, or by force to seize, take, or possess any property of the United States, they shall be fined under this title or imprisoned for not more than 20 years or both. Tell me that doesn't perfectly describe what happened on January 6th. Seditious conspiracy. The video's at thomhartmann.com. Check it out. And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you and Jeff in Winslow, Arizona. Hey, Jeff, what's on your mind?
Hey, Tom. I just wanted to call and let you know that as far as the filibuster, something you said today just blew all the clouds out of the sky and made it very clear to me. And that was when you said that the reason Manchin and Sinema are struggling so hard right now is because they're bare naked. They're right in the middle of the voters and their financial backers. And I think the position they're taking is going to be to their detriment. Either they're not planning on running again, or they're risking everything.
I agree.
If there was no filibuster, the voter would become very empowered in all this.
Yep.
They wouldn't be trying to please those people or the other senators. It would make the negotiations slow but at least there would be a negotiation. Right now, there isn't any. They
That's
just
correct.
phone it in and say, no, we ain't going to vote on that, so forget that. And it goes on some shelf somewhere.
Yep.
It's just a terrible way. And to do away with it would be, you'd have to answer. We might have a shot of bringing over Murkowski or that lady up there in Maine or one of them to our side if there wasn't a filibuster right now with our 50-50. If Sinema and they didn't want to get on, then let's go over there and lobby one of them and say, what does your state need? We'll put it in this thing. Let's do something, but the way that it is now, that's all blocked. So my question is this. This is not democratic, so it can't be constitutional. So where is the provision in the Constitution that allows the Senate to make rules that are unconstitutional? I understand they need rules for how they're going to do business. I get all that, but if it's if it goes against the Constitution, for instance, let's do this, because I would like to see this happen, but it's unconstitutional.
Jeff, I got to wrap this up. I'm with you that the filibuster is wrong. I don't think the filibuster is even constitutional, frankly. The Constitution specifies 3 different circumstances under which you have to have a supermajority of people to pass legislation or to do something, authorizing ambassadors, passing ambassadors, impeaching a president, and I forget what the third one is. But and so I just think it's wrong, frankly. I don't know how to describe it other than that. So anyway, let me pick up some of your phone calls here. Ed in Caro, Michigan. Hey, Ed, we got 1 minute here. What's up?
Hello?
Hey, Ed, you're on the air.
Oh, hi. Yeah, living near Canada, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, Canada, for many years, forever, really. They had a program, 1989, Witness. It's like a 60-minute program, and I believe it was on that program because they do have specials of that sort. They had a thing about those phthalate plastics. Lake Superior, there's a paper mill that was putting out effluents and stuff, and the fish and whatnot were getting caught. They looked like morphodite kind of fish and stuff. They went all around the world, and every place they went, there was this estrogen mimic that was created by plastics.
That's correct.
And this country is over 20 years behind the Canadians in that regard, as well as a whole bunch of other things that we learned on the Canadian, TV, radio, and all that. So just, I don't know, heads up to that, I guess. But I believe it was Witness. That's, as I say, it's like a 60-minute program, and they have excellent stuff. I'm not sure if they're still in production, but Canadians are way ahead of us in that regard, as well as the masks. David Suzuki, he's a scientist, and he had a program once about when you sneeze and how everything goes all around the room, and just great stuff from those Canadians. And this country is way behind.
Yep. I think we're hitting a break, Sean. But yeah, Ed, I'm with you. When we lived in Vermont, we used to watch Canadian television, and it was just spectacular. It's just spectacular. Thanks so much for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. In fact, tomorrow's Friday, isn't it? Holy cow, anything goes Friday tomorrow. Is Congressman Khanna going to be with us? No? Okay, so it's just going to be just you and me tomorrow. We'll have a lot of fun. My apologies to the folks who are still on hold. Give me a shout tomorrow. We can talk about whatever was on your mind. Thanks so much for being with us today. Don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. Get out there, get active, tag. You're it. Have a great afternoon. Be good to yourself and the people around you.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit delivery service. More info at HelloFresh.com, code TOM. CB Distillery, CBD for sleep and pain relief. More info is available at cbdistillery.com, code TOM. Ground News, a well-rounded perspective for newsreaders. More info at ground.news/Tom. Angie, for any project on your to-do list. More info at Angie.com. Dinovite, a whole food supplement for your pet's immune system. More info at Dinovite.com. And ExpressVPN, the VPN that just works. More information at expressvpn.com/Tom.